What's going on, YouTube? Back at it again with another live, baby. Let's go. Today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna be doing a reaction video. This reaction video right here is gonna be for Jesse Michaels. We're gonna do a Jesse Michaels reaction video, so y'all stay tuned for that right there. It's gonna be a banger. Let's go. Wait till some people hop on real quick. See what y'all got going on. Go ahead and spark us something real quick too. Let's get into it real quick.
And I know you're going to be doing a follow-up.
Oh, let's go ahead and fix this audio real quick.
I want to express my gratitude there, but let's get into your story, because I think in ways you are an ordinary American, and then in other ways you're an extraordinary American. And so I want to get into the ordinary elements. Where'd you grow up, and what were you like as a kid?
Oh, yeah. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is where I was born and raised for the first 10 years of my life. We moved to Las Vegas when I was pretty young, and like 10, 11 years old.
Let's see here.
And I grew up there the rest of my life. So I did back and forth for a while with family. So most of my family's still back there. And then most of my young childhood, teenage years were all in Las Vegas.
And did you know that
that's better right there?
You ended up having this really impressive, amazing, thank you for your service, by the way, career in Special Forces.
So I guess I should put this up there at the top then.
No, I thought I wanted to be a Navy SEAL because that's what everybody knows about. And I thought that was what the coolest thing you could do in the military at the time. And but I also wanted to be a fireman. That type of work always is what appealed to me when I was a kid. Like any typical young American boy. Yeah.
You ended up becoming a Green Beret. And a lot of people know about Navy SEALs. There are a lot of public Navy SEAls out there. You have David Goggins, you know, people like that, you know, doing podcast circuit sort of stuff all the time. Green Berets are much less well known, and there's sort of a rivalry at times between the two.
Oh, we like it. We like it that way. We like being the true, quiet professionals. I mean, it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural difference. I mean, I wouldn't say anything negative about the SEALs. They're a very professional organization. It's just culturally in Special Forces, Army Special Forces particularly, it's not very popular to talk
Sorry,
about.
Just had to get all this worked out. It's crazy because like I had to set everything up. So we're good now.
Enough to do it.
We're good now.
At what point did you become a Green Beret?
Yeah, so, well, when I was young, I was testing for the fire department in Las Vegas.
He's from
I
Vegas.
got hired for the fire department really young, 19 years old. And
our side of town right here.
A few years in my early 20s, I was kind of feeling stagnant. I was a very motivated young man, and I always challenged myself to do the best I could. I was valedictorian of my firefighter academy.
Oh, he's a firefighter.
I just felt like I was kind of getting stagnant. I was working at the busiest firehouse in the country. I was fighting fires all the time, but I just felt like I wanted to do more. The war was raging in the Middle East, and I was thinking still about that childhood dream of becoming a Navy SEAL, and I started looking into it and how I could do it without telling anybody. I kind of kept it a secret. I was married at the time too, so my wife's the only one at the time that knew that I was looking into it, because obviously I had to make sure she was cool with it. So I started digging in and finding out more about the Navy SEALs and talked to a SEAL recruiter. During that time, another friend of mine who was
a whistleblower, by the way,
for a sister department in Henderson, Nevada, which is right in Las Vegas. He told me that he was a SEAL or a MARSOC guy. He was
it's a lot of people here in Vegas, man, that know a lot of stuff.
SEALs, and he told me to look into Green Berets. He said he thought it would fit my personality better, and he told me a little bit about what they do, and I was like, that sounds really cool. Looked into it, didn't know much about it before that, and I was like, that is definitely more of a fit for my personality and what I want to do. They do kind of everything. Yeah. Unconventional warfare, anything from counter drug to counterterrorism. Unconventional warfare is like going in with a guerrilla force and overthrowing a tyrannical government, for example. So that just seemed like a really cool, noble mission to me. And so it resonated with me, and I pursued it and luckily made it.
How old were you at the time?
I was like 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the main distinction?
Damn, he was pretty young.
Said you grew up wanting to be a Navy SEAL. Why did you decide Green Beret over Navy SEAL? What's the main distinction between the two?
As I dug into both of the careers. Navy SEALs, there's movies out there, there's books out there. Green Berets didn't have a lot of information. I had to really dig to find out. And I thought that right there was cool to me. Like, I didn't want to do it to get some kind of accolade or recognition. I wanted to do it because it was doing the right thing and helping.
That's
be part of
usually
the
what makes
solution.
them whistleblowers,
Fighting
right?
at the
They just
tip of the
want.
spear. I felt like, and so that's that's why I was drawn to it.
How intense was the initial training?
That's pretty brutal, as you can imagine. Like any of that type of training that's gonna weed out 90% of the people, it's pretty brutal. You go through all your basic training and all that stuff, and then you go through a selection phase, which is pretty difficult. And the last part of that phase is team week, and you're broken.
Damn.
And everybody's got stress fractures, and I think I had hundreds of stress fractures in my feet by the end of it. And you know, you're still moving 20, 30 mile movements, you know, throughout the day, and carrying an exorbitant amount of weight. Like, I think
That's crazy.
175, 180 pounds through soft sand. It's just brutal. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet about it, but that's probably one of the more difficult physically demanding phases. But during the Q course, you have language phase. You got to learn a foreign language. You got to be fluent. You have 6 months to do that. That's difficult to do.
Damn.
Do you know any foreign languages?
Yeah, I speak Indonesian and Malaysian.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Indonesian's not an easy
It's-
language to learn.
It's actually fairly easy.
It is.
Yeah, it actually.
That's right.
Surprisingly.
Isn't it sort of very, I'm going to use this word incorrectly, but almost interoperable? Like, I have an old colleague named Eric Weinstein who always talks about how Indonesian's actually easy to pick up because it's like a few different core variables or something that account
Well,
for
He
the rest
just
of the
dropped
language.
like an old.
It's fairly easy. The
He said, "I got an
alphabet's
old
identical. The sounds are slightly different, but
colleague
any
called
language
Eric
is a
Weinstein.
lot of block memorization.
Famous
and
Eric
then
Weinstein.
Understanding like how you relate it to your native language.
Are there any things that you saw deployed in the field that, you know, made you think twice as far as American capabilities or adversary capabilities, just technology in the warfare context where you're like, I didn't know that existed.
Ooh, we're getting into real
so
questions
I
now.
think our technology is well ahead of what people know.
Hell
I
yeah.
know
Hell
it's
yeah.
well ahead of what people understand or think where we are.
Well, 100%.
Significantly. And because just where I was, right place, right time, I saw some of that. And yeah, there's technology out there that I think would
Right
blow
place at the
people's
right
minds
time.
if they knew that we had that capability. I mean,
Any examples?
yeah,
was
the drone
funny.
technology we have is pretty significantly better than people think.
Right now, as we speak, there's this mystery drone craze. I would say clearly that some of these are not man-made, but you know, that depends on your priors and
true.
understanding of a lot of the kind of weirder stuff. But what did you see, and what do you think we are capable of on the drone front?
Wait, go
I
back,
think-
go back.
But what did you see, and what do you, priors and understanding of a lot of the kind of weirder stuff? But what did you see, and what do you think?
Sorry.
Craze? I would say clearly that some of these are not man-made, but you know, that depends.
Hey,
on your
you heard that
priors
true,
and
right? I'm sorry to
understanding of a
go
lot
back
of
so
the
many
kind of weirder
times, but
stuff.
y'all heard that.
But what did you see, and what do you think we are capable of on the drone front?
I think what we're seeing, just my opinion, we're seeing our technology and drones respond to something that's not ours.
Are there any
Damn.
drones disguising themselves as other objects that seem prosaic?
And that's what I said all along. I'm like, these things are just responding to things that are not ours. Those drones are ours. The drones are. But the things that are moving crazy, that ain't ours. That ain't ours.
Have
Yeah.
you seen anything like that?
Yes, there's technology that can be disguised to look like ordinary things that are drones and ISR surveillance type platforms.
That's pretty amazing. And so are the things, I'm assuming the things themselves are not shape-shifting. They are.
No, not that I saw.
Yeah, they're creating a signature that resembles something more kind of ordinary.
Sure. Yeah, it's there to make you think it's something else. I mean, it looks like a local thing that would be normal to anybody who lives in the area.
Damn.
So there's like a funny protest movement run by this like trolling kid on social media, and it's like birds aren't real, and it's like that the birds are all like you know, CIA spooks or something.
I mean, it's hilariously accurate.
That's wild. So you think that there are drones that can maybe mimic? I mean, even in DARPA, there are
Well, yeah, they have
initiatives
that.
towards biomimicry, and like a lot of biological designs have actually inspired aircraft design.
Right.
But we're kind of taking this a step farther and saying that certain reconnaissance devices actually look like and appear to look like animal, like birds and
Sure.
stuff.
And
Yeah.
why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't that be a natural way of disguising your technology, or what you're trying to monitor someone without them knowing you're monitoring them? Yeah, anything natural in the environment is where you'd want to hide that. So
It's pretty intense. You also have worked and occasionally still work at Area 51, right? The kind of legendary flight testing site. I think it was created in the 1950s, mainly actually to test, I think, originally the U-2, but then, you know, other exotic aircraft on up from there. Just recently, another Green Beret was in the news under more unfortunate circumstances. Matthew Livelsberger executed a stranger-than-fiction car bombing, but with fireworks and a Cybertruck in front of Trump Tower in Las Vegas on New Year's Day 2025. After the incident, podcaster Sean Ryan
That was a
had
crazy
guest
story
star
right
named
there.
Sam Shoemate, claiming that Matthew had emailed him, saying that the New Jersey drones that the entire country has been confused about for the last 2 months.
What we have been seeing with the drones in the operation use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China and the East Coast, but throughout history in the U.S. Only we and China had this capability of our OPCEN location for this activity in the boxes below. And that address that he gave was Groom Lake. Gave that address was Groom Lake. So here we have, he was trying to flee to the Mexican border, but they eventually caught him. And I believe that's why he set that bomb off, was because homie knew he was gonna die already. If that's the case, right? This is what's going on. This is what they're releasing. Speculation, right? Speculations.
Are actually state-of-the-art gravitic propulsion drones from China. Controversy ensued, but Sean Ryan and Shoemate have now been vindicated by the FBI. It looks like this email was, in fact, sent by Livelsberger, the Las Vegas bomber. Having said that, I don't think we should wholesale accept all of the contents of this email. Chinese electrogravitic drones carrying large payloads that could vaporize New York or DC at the drop of a hat, hovering with impunity around civilian airspace, feels hard to believe, or at the very least should be further investigated and not just accepted at face value. But here's where I probably break from the consensus. I am confident that the US and probably China have at least cracked anti-gravity in laboratory settings. I know that sounds insane, but if you don't believe me, check out my videos on the great mid-century inventor Thomas Townsend Brown and with aviation journalist Nick Cook. There's an abundance of open source evidence out there that we can affect gravity in clear ways with high voltage electricity.
Damn.
But I digress. How does any of this tie together with Randy's story? Well, the crazy connection here is this very weird email sent by Matthew displays the coordinates of America's Gravitic Propulsion's Operations Center. The coordinates are at Area 51. Now, this
Lake.
alone doesn't prove anything. You can Google Area 51's coordinates. The reason this is interesting is because Randy, who is also a Green Beret and our interview subject today, has worked at Area 51. And he told me off air that he's seen a black triangle hovering around at the notorious flight testing facility that he believed was employing exotic electrogravitic propulsion.
Damn.
What has that experience been like?
anybody that works out at that area, we call it the test site or the test range. It's Area 51 is just one component of that entire huge sprawling compound base area. It's a testing range where they tested some of the first nukes, and it's a really cool place to check out historically.
This is where stuff really goes down, pretty much.
One of the coolest things I think about it is seeing those sites where they detonated nukes, where they had the Marines like embedded right next to where the explosions were going off, and they were dug in, and you can literally see the area where the explosion happened and where they were dug in, and benches where people sat and watched nuclear explosions go off and didn't realize how much danger they were in at the time.
I actually just did a piece with this guy, Robert Hastings, who wrote an amazing book called UFOs and Nukes. Yeah. And this guy documents 167 whistleblowers.
That was a good one right there.
Guys who are cleared to some of our most sensitive stuff, and they're basically tasked with guarding the crown jewels of American defense and our nuclear assets. And they're screened for being the picture of mental health. in certain cases, they have their finger on the nuclear button.
Yeah.
And so they have to be on what's called the PRP program and report if they're taking ibuprofen, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Like they're,
Right.
Very of sound mind. And
Hell
they
yeah.
consistently report seeing UFOs showing up not only in and around nuclear assets, but actually in and around the plume of nuclear blasts and atmospheric tests. And a lot of these guys are older. So like, I think atmospheric tests were banned at some point mid-century, but like,
Right.
so if this was going on at Area 51, you have to think that, that's got to be a very interesting place as far as maybe UFO activity as well.
Yes,
And I always
sir.
wondered too, because it's a great place to test technology because there's not a lot of eyes on it. So it makes sense that that's what
Look
they
at
use
that
it for. And
thing.
obviously, that's what they did.
Blackbird.
The SR-71, F-117 were programs. that they
Nighthawk.
heavily
I
tested
remember
out
when I
there.
was little when this
And I'm
thing
sure a
got
lot of the
reported
exotic
and
tech
everything. It was
is
sick,
tested out there
man.
as well. But then there's also the stuff that we don't quite know what it is that's showing up, and I think it's incredibly interesting. And personally, I mean, being out there, so my role out there is to help as an opposition force for some units that are training for operations overseas, and that's about as deep as I can go into it. It's nothing super cool. It's fun, cool guy stuff to do for guys like us,
said
guys
cool
like me
guy.
that like
Hell
to
yeah.
shoot guns and get in a gunfight or pretend gunfight in this case. But and get to run into old buddies of mine that I worked with in special forces teams, and so it's cool. And while out there, we have had a couple crazy incidents. I'll speak to one in particular just because I don't think it's too crazy to speak about. But basically, I brought some of the guys out with me. We're operating under somebody's Q clearance. While out there, one of the commanders of the unit that was coming in by helicopter, unit landed, and one of the cadre that oversees their movement and kind of grading them on their performance and evaluating was standing next to some of my guys. And during that time, a green orb type object had flown over, and my buddy had seen it, and he looked up at the cadre that was there and asked him if he had seen it, and he looked down at my buddy and said, "Are you sure you saw that?" And my friend was like, "Yeah, I saw it as a green orb." And he says, "Because if you did see it, we got a lot of paperwork to do." And my buddy kind of got the hint, and he said, "Yeah, maybe I didn't see it." And he's like, "That's better." And they kind of brush it off. So they obviously either knew what it was or knew not to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know either or. I mean, we sign NDAs and stuff going out there, so there's
So you can't
not much
really
more
talk
to say
about it.
but,
Sure.
it was
See,
interesting, and
it's a
I've seen couple
whistleblower,
things like that
but
out
he
there
can
in
only
my time
talk about
working out
what he
there.
could talk
They're-
about.
They're definitely cool.
Well, the lack of shock on behalf of that officer, I think, says it all, right? It's
Absolutely.
like, seems kind of like a routine thing for him to have seen. In fact, there was a meteor expert at the University of New Mexico named Lincoln La Paz. And in 1948-49, he was basically studying green fireballs following the plume, radioactive debris post-nuclear blasts across
Damn.
the U.S. There's another guy, a researcher named Dan Wilson, who was also following up on this line of research. And so I think that's actually a fairly common thing when it comes to ufology and UFOs. And
pretty
Lou
cool.
Elizondo has also spoken about green fireballs. And in fact, I've seen a green fireball with Lou Elizondo.
That's crazy,
as well.
man. Yeah, you were mentioning that. What was that? What was the?
We were hanging out at Lou's place actually in Wyoming, and it was kind of later at night. We were like by his shed just hanging out, and Lou is going deep on, and for the audience, for who might need context on this, Lou Elizondo is a guy who ran the official UFO investigation program under Harry Reid. It was called OSAP, kind of, I guess, morphed into this program called ATIP. And he's since come out and kind of blown the whistle on some stuff around UFOs. And so, yeah, we're hanging out at his house, and he's going
Some
deep
big
on
folks.
how the sun is this nuclear fusion reactor, and specifically how it works and stuff. And then all of a sudden, we just see, it's hard to kind of place distance on these things, but we see this green fireball just shoot out into the sky, and we're just like, what the? Like, this couldn't be weirder as far as what we're talking about, who we're with, and seeing this happen.
So, dude, like I know for a
Something
fact,
crazy,
for me,
man.
since,
Something crazy.
Since, my experience, I've definitely seen more stuff than I mean, I didn't see anything before that. I never noticed. Maybe I wasn't looking, but now I see shit all the time.
That feels like the dirty little secret in UFO world, because it feels like a lot of people downplay their personal experiences because they want to maintain this like impartiality of like, I'm this perfect scientist.
Yeah.
But
I've
the
never
more
heard
you
that
notice the
before.
thing, the more it does start to happen to you.
I've never
And
heard that
the
before.
Deep.
I've never heard that before, where it's like the own people downplay their own, like their stories. Okay.
You have a couple of drinks with, anybody in this field.
Yeah.
They start to say, yeah, things have gotten kind of trippy once I've started to look into this, which makes sense, right? Like you have the video of like, I think this like gorilla going across this video, and if you're not focused on the gorilla, you don't see the gorilla, you know what I mean? So your attention is somehow fundamental to what you experience in life. So that sounds like that's happened with you as well.
It's probably that same phenomenon, like you buy a red car and then you see red cars, whatever, like whatever type of car you buy, you see that type of car all of a sudden everywhere.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Maybe it's
But
just that we're looking
it seems
now
like
and we're more aware
when
of
you
it,
get
so
to see them, it's like you see them more
Tony
often,
Robbins,
right?
I think,
So
was interviewed by Theo Vaughn, and he was like, notice everything red in the room.
Yeah.
And if you were to do that right now, you notice everything red in the room, and then you close your eyes. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
would
I remember
say,
this.
You know,
What'd you see that was brown?
What did you see that was brown? You wouldn't really remember, but you would remember the red thing. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think anyways, it's super fascinating, but that's wild. So you experienced that firsthand at Area 51. Any other technology?
crazy.
I mean, one area that might be worthy of discussion is one of the top 5 episodes for Joe Rogan. And the subject of a lot of mythology and lore in UFO world is Bob Lazar,
Right.
who claimed to work at Area 51, a special compartment of it called S4.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what Area 51 was before Bob Lazar came out, and so a lot of people are like, this
Shout
story is
out to
totally
Bob
legit. By the way,
Lazar,
he claimed to
yo.
basically work on reverse engineering UFOs.
That dude right there
And
was
he's
like the
all sorts
pioneer of
interesting
all.
stuff, like Element 115, which is this stable version of Muscovium, was used for the propulsion. He
Muscovium.
talks about gravity A, gravity B, but he also was shown things about bodies being containers of souls and just all sorts of trippy out there
That's
stuff.
wild, man. Yeah, so like I've dug more into this stuff just since the experience,
Damn.
and I mean, it's I don't know about Bob Lazar's story.
Hey, thank you for that like. Thank you for that like right there, champ.
But I don't know if you're gonna talk about your theory on that, but I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty cool, man, and I'd lean into that pretty heavily as far as like that's probably what's going on, man.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
I'm happy to say it.
Okay, yeah, I think you should.
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to focus this back on you.
Okay.
You're the real guest of honor, but I will. I think that Bob Lazar was kind of a limited hangout of a person, and so what I mean by that is he would provide high-level frameworks where it's like that cicada challenge or whatever for the NSA or something, or is it NSA or CIA or something,
Right,
where it's
yeah.
like if you have a really impressive mathematical and like puzzle, piecing ability or whatever
get it.
online, you get it and you get recruited or whatever. And so Bob Lazar comes out, he says gravity A, gravity B, he says all these things about, stable versions of these, elements that like we're not aware of. And if you investigate that and jump the bar to the, where you show a level of prowess or ability with these highly technical concepts and actually kind of read the tea leaves on them, then maybe you get recruited to the program.
100%. The reason why I think this is important for you to bring, the reason I dug into that a little bit with
That's
you is
funny.
because this type of stuff happens throughout the military as well.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to give an
Even in
example
the
of that,
government with
because-
hackers, right? They hire them.
And also because I think it ties into maybe possibly why I was exposed to what I was exposed to.
Okay.
So, and I'll bring that full circle, but there was one point in the Q course, and again, the Q course is a training program to become a Green Beret. They randomly, and this isn't uncommon, so it didn't strike me as odd at the beginning of this. They just told us we were going to do a run, and they said, just run until you're told to stop, do your best, right? It's a common way of them evaluating you. You don't know how far you're going to go, do your best. That's a difficult, that adds a level of stress, okay? And that's what they're trying to do in a lot of these cases. So you start running down a path, soft.
It's almost like Men
sand
in Black,
trail,
right? They
sucks
just
to run on.
had that fool doing little
And during the run,
tests.
I remember as I'm going along the route.
The real test
the
is to
trees
see what
had
you do
something posted
during the
on
test.
trees as I was running, and one tree had like a face posted, like a image, headshot of somebody. I noticed it, and then another tree had a red 7. Another tree had a blue 3. Another tree had another face. And so there's just every so often another tree had something posted on it. And so I'm mentally noting this, like significant for some reason.
Yes.
And at the end of the run, it just ended up being like a 6-mile run for time. People that did well on the run got sectioned off. People who didn't got sectioned off. And people who did well on the run got brought to an area where we took a test. And the test was all the red numbers add, all the green numbers subtract, and which faces did you see? And so you go through and you do this quick test, and then people that did well on the test sectioned off and so on. And it was an evaluation for another unit in the military above, these units. And so they do that. They do that kind of stuff often, at least in the military. So I don't see why an agency like the CIA wouldn't recruit people the same type of way.
Makes sense.
Evaluate you without you realize you're being evaluated. You're going to get a genuine,
Right.
you're going to get genuine
Results.
good people are good at what you're looking for them to be good at.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not enough to tip the hat to the adversary and might even throw them off the trail in a sense. But to some like initiated elite, person, then all of a sudden you get into the program or something.
Yeah.
So
And so, yeah, I think those type of tests happen often, especially in the military and especially at the level of special operations. I think they're looking for guys that display certain characteristics to do other work.
Yep.
And if they identify that, then you end up, and I think maybe that's why I ended up seeing what I saw. Maybe something triggered something that they said, let's see. And that happened.
So why don't we set this up for the audience? What is Naval Surface Warfare Crane, and why were you there to begin with?
Yeah, so I didn't have any particular knowledge about that. It just ended up being the place where we were doing this training. This particular course was to do some advanced weapons training. My job in Special Forces was an 18 Bravo. 18 Bravos are your weapon sergeant on the team, and your responsibility is to be proficient on hundreds of different types of weapon systems, foreign and domestic weapon systems. And that's everything from handguns, rifles, up to rocket launchers and recoilless rifles, mortars, any type of weapon system.
Pretty much.
So you can work over like 100 weapons yourself.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
But it's it's what you do. That's what your focus is. So so this was just another course, and one of the focuses of this particular training was the Mark 44 minigun. Okay. That's a somewhat complicated weapon system. So it requires an extra level of training, and we were there going over that. The SCAR had a new iteration of it, and we were going over that. So just going over special operations, SOCOM weapons.
Yep.
And more advanced training, like becoming an armorer on some of those weapon systems, which allows you to do a higher level of care and maintenance for the team.
Were you there with a unit, or?
I was there with a group of guys. Some guys there were armorers for their unit, some tier 1 units, some special operations units. Some guys were a couple other Green Berets. There were only a few of us, me and one other guy that ended up exposed to what we were exposed to. And so, yeah, I want to show you this.
Yeah.
I think it's important to the validity of what I'm saying. So I don't know how you want to.
Yeah. Well, for the intense skeptic out there, you have Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane Division, and Randy M. Anderson. So there you go.
And it's in my DD-214 as well, which is I'll provide you with. And
it's in your what?
My DD-214.
DD-214. Okay, so that's your record.
Yeah, everything done in the military is documented there. So
you were clear. You were there.
By all intents and purposes, man, it was a normal, actually kind of rundown facility. It's huge. Crane, Indiana is in the middle of freaking nowhere.
And it's also known for its naval readiness in general, right? It's part of the NAVC program. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true or comports with your understanding, but that there's some coordination between Crane and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
It makes sense based on some of the stuff that happened. And there's also a civilian company that was tied to it, that's tied to some exotic stuff.
Okay.
Oh, so it's always a civilian company.
Well, there's SAIC.
That's
a very interesting contractor with some history in that area. And I'm friends with actually Navy Special Warfare guy, and he'll say some pretty interesting stuff to me. He'll say like the Air Force guys, those guys talk, and he's like the Navy guys, they never speak, and they experience way more weird. He was like, look at the tenure of nuclear Navy engineers. And he was like, tell me, like, that's not the highest churn job you've ever experienced. He's like, those people are seeing crazy stuff underwater in these nuclear subs. Damn. And you think about it, you know, all the stuff around UFOs and nukes, people with Q clearances, they're above land.
Yeah.
If you're in this contained vessel,
it'd be terrifying.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
In some remote, you know, part of the world or whatever, and then you see, you know, some sort of non-human entity sort of try to disrupt your comms or shut down your power.
That's crazy right there.
I'm out.
Right?
If I can't shoot it.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. So you're doing like kind of combat training stuff at Crane.
Yeah, weapons training.
Training. Then what happens?
A couple days into the training, we were doing really well. Me and this guy were doing very well. And we got pulled to the side at the end of the day on a regular training day. And we stayed after and we're talking with the cadre and instructors. And somebody else had come into the room and
And just to clarify, he did say that the Navy SEALs definitely sees more stuff than the Air Force, but the Air Force people be talking more than the Navy SEALs people. So it's crazy. It's in the waters, guys.
we maybe were just getting some extra stuff because we were doing well. And they ended up telling us we're going to go check out some foreign weapons. We went to another part of the facility, went to another building. In that building, we went into an elevator. We took an elevator down, which that was the first odd thing, is that it felt like we went down significantly further than like you would think you would. I mean, it was just awkward. It just stood out.
You went way underground.
I don't know if it was way, but it was further down than like a few floors, you know, so I don't know how far. I don't know how fast the elevator was going. I didn't know I needed to pay attention to it at the time.
A lot.
It was just, it's just something that stood out to me, that we were going
50
underground.
floors down,
and these are
100.
Pretty well documented now across America, you know, underground military facilities. And so, okay, so you're going underground. Did you know that there was an underground complex at Crane before this? Okay.
He said he went on the elevator and felt forever.
So what's going through your mind at this point? You're going down underground in an elevator with these random instructors.
Well, at the end of the day, man, I'm a soldier and I do what I'm told. So I'm just following orders and just going and, okay, we're going to go here, go stand there, do this. But I'm observing, you know, I'm kind of, it's starting to feel different, you know. The mood has definitely become more serious.
Oh,
you know, the people we were with were seemed serious, and me and the other guy were just being quiet and you know not showing any emotion.
That's cool right there, yo.
We get under there, door opens, we go through a security type checkpoint. I remember the first thing that stood out to me was that it was significantly more modern than everything up top.
Yep.
That was odd. The lighting and everything seemed more modern.
Damn.
Just seemed more upkept.
Yeah. Kind of state of the art.
It was very streamlined how things operated down there. So you could tell it was like very regimented. Just like you walk on this, everybody walked on the right side to go down the hall. Like people coming this way walked on their right. It's just, and there was like a line on the wall that you followed to different areas. You know how like the hospitals sometimes have like a line to follow to the emergency room. It was kind of that seemed like it was that. I mean, I wasn't 100% paying attention to that. I was just had observed it upon getting under there or getting down there. We moved through a security checkpoint, and then we started looking at some foreign weapons stuff, and they were telling us about
foreign weapons,
some Russian and Chinese weapon systems that were captured. And I don't want to go too into the details on this stuff. It's still within too kind of close proximity to that.
Sure.
That I don't want to go too far. But basically, it was pretty advanced stuff that they had been using that was captured, probably, I would assume, by agency types that were operating in the area and had come across stuff that it seemed exotic. It wasn't anything that would strike me as beyond what I'd expect us to find or people to have the capability of making. But it was interesting for sure. Just the type of ammunition and the way the weapon systems operated. There was some
kind of exotic, unconventional.
Yeah, unconventional.
Yeah,
I would say not so much exotic, but unconventional for sure.
Okay.
And so we talked about that for a little bit, and they kind of felt like it was sort of evaluating our thoughts on it, maybe seeing, you know, we are weapons experts, and so maybe they just wanted another set of eyes on it, maybe just evaluating to see what we came up with. Maybe they were evaluating us for see what we could find out about. I don't know.
Right.
You know, it's like I said, I've thought about this a lot. And
Maybe they knew and they were testing you.
Exactly.
Maybe they didn't know and they genuinely wanted your help.
Sure.
There's
Yeah,
a whole host
that's
of
a good.
possibilities.
Absolutely.
It's
And
hard
I
to
don't
tell,
say it was
man.
one of the, I don't know.
Sure.
But again, we did that for a bit. And then
At any point, did you say, "Hey, why are we down here?"
Hell
You're just
no.
kind of, yeah.
and you wouldn't. You
Yeah.
know, you wouldn't. It's not the way things are done. So
Yeah.
you just do. You
Yeah,
know, you
totally.
just do the thing.
And if you're ever like going to be denied access to the most interesting stuff, it's by asking questions like that, probably.
Yeah,
So
I'd bet.
you probably just want to kind of go with it at that point. Okay, so you're looking at this exotic, or not exotic, but unconventional adversary technology.
Yes. And again, it was really interesting, and I think we came up with a couple ideas of what we thought about it, and purpose and functionality, and then they kind of, the two guys we were with spoke for a little bit, and then and again, I'm a lot of this is me trying to remember, and so I don't know if I'm getting everything perfect, but in hindsight, looking back, I would assume maybe they were deciding if we were going to go further.
Yeah.
And they ultimately decided we would, I guess, because we went down and ended up going through another security checkpoint, which that was odd because we had already gone through a significant level of security. And so I thought that was odd. This was more like going into a skiff,
Okay.
what I would compare it to. And when you do that, everything you take your watch off, anything electronics.
Damn.
On,
Yep. So for the audience, SCIF is Secret Compartmentalized Information Facility.
Correct, yeah.
And it's like a Faraday cage on
Yes.
steroids, so
Yes.
that any comms
good
that
analogy.
take place within the
Yeah.
SCIF are completely offline.
Anything that goes into the skiff
Can't come out.
can't come out, and yeah, so it's just a very protected facility, for good reason. And so yeah, it was that level of security, which is the highest level of security I've seen or dealt with. And so that was strange too, because we'd already gone through a pretty robust security checkpoint to get under there.
And are they checking your clearance at each point? Or
No, I mean that's already done when we got to the training, so they know who we are.
Yeah.
You know, and it was more just like, do you have anything right now on you? Yeah, that's what it felt like.
like a TSA on steroids sort of situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you go through that, you put your stuff in a box, it gets locked into a box, and then you go through another checkpoint area, a scan, and whatever else, right? Not uncommon, but seemed highly unusual for this. After that, we moved on down another hallway and got into an area that had a marking on the wall and said off-world technology.
Said off-world technology.
There it is.
That's insane.
So immediately,
Let's go.
Immediately, my bells go off.
Was it engraved?
Off
Or
world.
was it?
No, it was.
Did it look like it was written in marker or something? Or
It was. But it wasn't like it was like permanent. It was like someone like stuck a placard in, kind of.
Okay.
You know,
Stuck a placard.
So I don't know. It could have been a setup. It could have been something just thrown together.
Sure.
But it could have been something that's just how they had.
But it said off-world technology.
Yeah, that obviously immediately started to feel what the fuck is going on, right? Yeah, so me and the guy are looking at each other. The other guy that's there, he's another Green Beret. We're like, fuck, kind of giving each other that look, and
Damn.
yeah, that was where the weird shit started. So yeah, we go into the room, and the one room, these significantly higher level of technology, like the lighting even looked, everything was just, it was more, it was just a different vibe, man. I don't know how else to describe it. Like I said, the lighting was different. The walls had like maybe, I would assume, some type of Faraday material. Like everything was just a higher level of detail.
Yeah.
The first object was a metallic basketball-sized sphere, and it was above a podium, and looked like it was just levitating above the podium.
Levitating above the podium. Mm-hmm. So there was space between the sphere and the podium itself.
Correct. And I remember at one point, like, trying to angle myself, like, what? How is that?
Do you think it could have been some sort of magnetic levitation? Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
But it's just levitating there.
It was just levitating.
Did it look like a prosaic, like this? wood table where if you were to, touch
Almost
it,
like what they
it would
saw at the
act
airport.
like a normal object? Did it look holographic? What did it look like?
So okay, that's a good question. What stood out to me was the way the metal looked. It looked unnatural. And I talked with Gerb about this, and he kind of dug in on this. And I'm like, dude, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is it didn't look natural. It didn't look like anything I could compare it to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So look, it almost looked like Off-World.
It fit the bill.
Yeah.
And then also there was and this could have been anxiety or anything else, but the energy in the room, man, was just different.
What was the
Holy
feeling you
cow.
got looking at this thing?
Change the energy
just
in the
unease.
room, yo.
Uneasy, uncomfortable, ominous. That's the best way I can describe it.
Did it feel powerful or conscious, or did it feel like this inanimate object? Or
It didn't feel inanimate. It didn't feel conscious. It just felt like this was significant. And it could have been the way that they brought us in. It could have been all the buildup. Could have been that.
do you have any extra context at this point? Did the instructors at any point, are they in the room with you, by the way?
They are acting like this is a normal Tuesday. And that's what fucked me up even more. That was
That's
oddly
funny.
very strange, man.
Y'all hit that like button.
I hadn't been
Subscribe to
closing,
the
like,
channel,
before that
yo.
or since, so
And they didn't say, hey, so what you're about to experience is kind of trippy. They just
No.
took you into this room.
they just and maybe that was part of the point. It could have absolutely just been something that triggered on a evaluation for me and this guy, and they brought us out there to see if we'd react to the technology. That could have been a part of it.
Do you ask them at any point?
Well,
how this-
so after a moment, I mean, have a moment to like kind of drink that in, and then they were talking about, and they were kind of talking to us and each other. It felt just weird, man. Almost like they were purposely making it awkward.
Yeah.
I would say, but maybe it's just because I was
Purposely
in a
making
weird
it awkward?
situation.
Do you know anything about these instructors as far as like, do they have physics background or military background? Or they're just-
Most of them have military background. A lot of them come out of the same type of special operations
Okay.
that we were in. Or at least some of them, but they are civilian contracted companies that are working for.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for Crane.
Gerb has come up with some really interesting research around how this is possibly SAIC and how they've
Sure.
done some contracting work with Crane in the past. And SAIC is pretty deep in consciousness research. In fact, they were the CIA has a psychic spy program. This is fully, by the way, declassified and known and on record. Psychic spy program, it ran from 1972 to 1995.
Damn.
Probably some version of it is
quite
still
a bit of
going on
time.
today. I have trouble believing that, they actually sunsetted it fully. And
Why wouldn't they? It was successful.
yeah, and you have, people like Joseph McMoneagle, who's remote viewer #1, who won the Legion of Merit for over 200 instances in which he added to military intelligence. In fact, you have a quote from Jimmy Carter, president from 76 to 80, saying the craziest thing that I've ever experienced in my presidency was a remote viewer. Her name, I believe, was Rosemary Smith.
Yeah.
Basically,
The
there was
remote
this
viewers are
T-22,
crazy, yo.
spy plane, Russian spy plane that had downed. It had gone down in Africa. All of Africa is the target, and this woman draws a 3 square mile radius in Zaire to where they find the plane. And he freaks out, and there's an audio of him saying this. And so, for anybody out there, you should look into this. This is a real program. SAIC in Palo Alto was running a lot of the operations later for Stargate and the psychic spy program. So they're extremely interested in this. And our friend, UAP Gerb, has dug up a lot of research around SAIC's work with Crane. And there are other instances, by the way, of tests going on with people and their psionic connection. And there's a guy named Chris Bledsoe you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
North Carolina.
Yes.
Hey, I lived in North
Crazy
Carolina
story.
too.
Yeah. And a guy named Tim Taylor is a NASA
Some
mission
crazy
controller.
stuff
We were
in North
talking about him
Carolina.
last night, shows up in Bledsoe's life,
Yep.
shows him a piece of space material,
Mm.
and somehow Bledsoe knows that it's like not from here.
Yeah.
And then and there's this interesting kind of reaction, and then Tim Taylor says, "Why you?" or something. Like he knows that at that point Bledsoe does actually have this genuine psychic ability or something.
Well, dude, that's funny that you bring that up because I 100%
Damn.
when I saw that sphere could say that I would, if I had no other context, even though I had the off-world technologies.
What's up, Apple Butter? What's going on with you, man?
Well, If I had none of that, I would have been like, that's not from here.
Right. More context or corroboration that maybe your story isn't happening in a vacuum. There's a story of Uri Geller where, again, say what you will about the guy. I think there might have been some snake oil in some of the stuff that he was doing, but he was brought over by a guy named Andrei Puharich.
Make sure you hit that sub button, champ.
Who was part of consciousness research going on in the U.S., but also was doing weird MK Ultra stuff as well.
Right.
He brings over Uri Geller. Uri Geller has a crazy story with Werner von Braun, who's the father of the German and American space programs, ran our Saturn program that took us to the moon.
Dang.
Where von Braun shows him, a piece of space material in a safe. And Uri Geller is able to deduce that this is not from here or whatever. And so this seems to be kind of this recurring trope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely felt that when I saw the object. I did not say that. And I think they were trying to see if we had a reaction to it. And I mean, because there was an awkward moment of silence, like I said, and then they started talking about it, and maybe they were discussing it to get further reaction out of us, but they started talking about that it was recovered from a craft that crashed.
They said that.
They did say that.
Wow. So they said this orb was actually recovered from a craft.
Yeah.
But it
from a craft. So the orb was coming from a craft.
Yeah.
So what do
Hey, heck yeah, champ. That's what's up, man. Let's go.
think? I mean, did you extrapolate anything from that as far as what role the orb played in the craft's overall working?
So I want to be careful how what I say I remember and don't remember, because this was a while ago, but I want to say I remember them talking about it being a control mechanism for the craft.
Oh, so that ball was a control mechanism?
And I don't remember if they had said that to each other or to us. Like I said, there was kind of a two-way conversation happening. They were talking a little bit back and forth to each other, and then talking, giving us
ball
bits
is
of
a
information.
Control mechanism.
Also,
so did they
I don't
touch
remember
it?
exactly how that came out, but I do remember
they probably touched the ball,
it was
right?
potentially part of a control mechanism, and that it interacted with consciousness. I wanted to ask a question, I didn't, but I'm like, how would they know that?
So that ball.
Wow. So okay, you see this orb levitating on this podium.
They don't got to touch it. It just.
Then what happens?
So we spent a little time there, and then we went to the next object, and it was another metallic object, very, very strange looking, same type of vibe. It's hard to describe because I didn't get a full view of it, but it looked like something you could like reach in and grab.
Oh, it's like an arm.
Pick up, and maybe it was something that would you could put on your arm. So something that would have to use it with their arm. That's the best way I can describe it.
Like a gauntlet.
It's like a gauntlet. Yeah, this is a good analogy. Or maybe something that would like be like a shield, and it had like a crystal type of display screen. I don't know if it was a display screen. It was
my dude.
Square, rectangular.
What?
Looked like it would potentially be a display screen, and it was sitting. It was not levitating. It was sitting on.
It was sitting. So like you pick it up. You got to pick that thing up and put it on.
Point, like I'm looking at it, and it almost looked like a mirage type of effect. And in that, above that display screen were these hieroglyphic symbols that I started to see appear.
They really got that.
Yeah,
they really got that.
Hieroglyphic symbols.
That's the best way I can
Hell
describe
yeah.
And
I don't know what they were.
They telling us now,
anything
man.
going through your
They
mind
telling
at
us
this
now.
point as you're seeing.
Yeah, it was shit in bricks. I mean,
Man, they telling us now.
And are you
and you know the crazy part is, I swear, the crazy part is that he's only telling us what he could tell us. He literally says he can't say a bunch of stuff, so there's a bunch of stuff that he can't tell us, right? He's only telling us what he could tell us.
to figure out?
I'm trying to be cool, man.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not look like I'm trying to act normal.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what this is for. I'm just trying to act like everything's fine.
Yeah. And in retrospect, have you been able to deduce what any of these symbols were, or draw them up, or what they mean? Or
so I've randomly, like I told you, I meditate and all this stuff now, and during meditations I've had a couple times where I've thought about it and they've come into my thoughts. Also, the lawyer,
Danny Sheehan.
Yeah, he had talked about them, and he had drawn some that looked a lot like what I saw.
A lot like what you saw.
Yeah.
So for context for the audience, Danny Sheehan in
What,
1970.
what the heck did we just see? I don't know what that was.
Again, secret compartmentalized information facility in Washington, D.C. I believe at the.
Oh, bro, we just chilling. We just looking at these UFO whistleblowers, champ. That's what we that's a UFO whistleblower with hella ranks. He works with a lot of pretty much guns. A gun expert for the military. Bunch of rankings here in Nevada. He went to Area 51, all that stuff, and he's just pretty much disclosing a lot of stuff that's going on with what's going on. That's pretty much what's going on. And a little bit later, we're gonna go into the garden
of the incoming Carter administration. So it might have even been 76, and he was shown basically the Blue Book files.
Right.
And he's looking through the Blue Book files, and he sees this UFO crashed into the side of a mountain. Okay. And it's the dead of winter, and there's some Air Force officers present.
Straight crashed.
And he sees on the rim of the UFO these hieroglyphic symbols.
The UFO had crashed into this field, and there was snow, and the dirt was all turned up and stuff, and the UFO itself was stuck in the side of this big embankment. In one of the photos, I could see these symbols that were all around the base of the dome. And I took out the yellow pad and I opened it up to the inside cardboard.
Oh, he started.
And I slid it under the microfiche machine, and I focused it so that I could see the symbols. And then I traced the symbols exactly, verbatim, all the way around the half of the dome that I could see. And I just put them all. I just traced all of them.
So that's what he saw on the crash.
Very close to what I seen. And also, I want to touch on something else that this correlates.
So that's what he saw on the crash.
And then I traced the symbols exactly, verbatim. All the way around the half.
Look at those symbols. Dang, it almost looked like damn near Chinese.
The dome that I could see. And I just put them all. I just traced all of them.
I saw that show, and
it's a divide sign right there.
Very close to what I seen. And also, I want to touch on something else.
And hold on a second. You know how it's crazy how he said that he was like stuck inside the mountain like this. It's crazy every time the UFO crashes, it goes like inside of the dirt sideways, like it just like cuts in it like a knife, right? Like it just, because like anything else, his dirt is gonna like kaboom, and then like right, that thing just like slides in like butter, right?
Correlates with documentary that I saw on YouTube about DMT.
Yeah.
And these guys were doing experiments with DMT, and they found that everybody was seeing these same symbols when they did shine a laser a certain way and kind of diffracted the laser.
Yep.
In a way that you do like the double slit experiment.
Yes.
And in the diffraction, they saw these symbols, and those symbols are the same.
That's fascinating. Yeah, Danny Jones does this amazing show on this, and these guys they're doing DMT. They're showing a laser in a specific way exactly to create this diffraction effect, and then their kind of interpretation of this is like they're seeing almost like the source code, like a binary code behind what we're seeing.
Man, you want me to try it right now? I got a laser right there. Let's see.
But if you
hold on 1 second,
like John
y'all chill 1 second. We about to try it out. Let's see if we can do that. We got a laser, a very high powerful laser. Let's see. But then they said you gotta look at it or what? What y'all think, chat? You gotta look at the laser or what? Let's see. Let's see. We got a laser right here. Let's see. We got a full-blown laser right here. Let me see. What they say? You just gotta look down through the laser? Let me see. Hell nah. I think they're trying to blind you, chat. Because I ain't looking at this laser straight through. What the hell?
Or people like Claude Shannon who would take.
Let's see what the lady did.
Almost
see,
like
I got a laser right here.
Code, like a binary code behind what we're seeing, which that sounds absolutely absurd. But
it's
if
a
you
green
take
one too.
Physicists like John Wheeler.
But what did they say? What?
Or
do y'all know, chat, how to do it? Y'all know how to do it? We gonna get to the bottom of this. It's a trap, right? That's what I'm saying, bro. It's a trap. They want you look how she's looking.
This is like,
So so like the laser's shining on the wall and she's looking at the wall. So oh shit. Hold on a second, chat. Let me see. I see it on the wall, right? And it looked like, you know what it looked like on the wall? Chat, you know what it looked like on the wall? It looked like if you were to see like, you know how you got your old school TV and there's nothing on it, right? That's what it looked like on the wall. But I'm gonna get closer. I'm gonna get closer, chat. Let me see. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what I'm looking for, but it's some stuff there for sure. Let's see. It just yeah, no, I can't. It don't look like nothing. Let's see. Retracted. I think it has to be refracted. The hell is? I don't know what refracted is to a glass, champ. Man, they got your ass. I'm saying though, bro. I'm trying to tell you, like I don't see what they see, champ. And I got a good one right here. I don't know, man. I don't know.
seeing almost like the.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. So that's how a homie sees it through a glass. Yeah, I don't know about all that. I got a water bottle. So you got a. I don't know. Okay, so he's looking at it through the glass, and it's I don't know, man. Yeah, that's beyond me. That's already crazy enough right there. But I thought it was gonna be something easy.
Like a binary code behind what we're seeing, which that sounds absolutely absurd. But if you take physicists like John Wheeler seriously, or people like Claude Shannon, who wasn't really more kind of information theory, but like maybe the universe is more information theoretic at its core, and we are rendering it in real time. And maybe when you take DMT, you ascend into these higher states, and you can actually look at the source code itself. It's fascinating.
And what does it mean then if that source code is in the same language of
you got to take DMT? Hell no.
Advice and whatever.
I don't know about that.
You saw on that craft.
That makes me.
I took acid before, but I ain't never took no DMT.
Might be a slight misnomer, and it might be an interior fabric to the reality that we're in every day, or something even more fundamental to what we're seeing, or something.
Probably
manifest destiny.
But when you're looking at these hieroglyphics,
I believe in manifestation,
you
champ.
Don't have the context of the Danny Sheehan interview or whatever.
Nothing at that point.
So what's the first thing that goes through your head as to like what this is?
Well, first thing is like, am I hallucinating or am I seeing that? I was squinting and looking at it, and I think even one of the guys who was with us had asked me, like, because he saw me looking at it, had asked me if, like, are you everything all right? Or I don't remember exactly what he said, but he kind of inquired to why I was looking at it, and I was like, oh yeah, and I just kind of brushed it off and forgot about it. But I mean, not only did I see the symbols, but they were like changing to different symbols. So there was a movement to them as well. So they weren't just like static.
Hey, they asked him, "What are you looking at?"
It's almost like they were shuffling in and out of.
You ever see
or like in the
Predator?
Yeah.
You know how when he has that little communicator thing, and he's like gonna blow himself up, and it does a little countdown.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of look like that.
Do you feel like it was like a holographic display, or like the technology showing it? Did it feel prosaic, or did it feel like just something you'd never seen before as far as the display itself?
Holographic sure could have been, but it was very crisp. Like where I feel like the holographic technology I've seen at like CES or whatever, it's almost like kind of hard to.
Like you can see that it's a light.
You can tell that it's not. Yeah, that it's not a solid object. Or not a physical object.
Yeah. So you could see in that case that it was like a light display, and in this case, does it almost feel like it's like part of reality itself?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Wow.
Damn.
And oh man, there's so many places to take this. Like we were talking last night, and a lot of the early cryptographers, if you look at like, I think he's a 14th century guy, Trithemius. Would write about cryptography in the context of angel communication. And even today, like we're in LA right now, there are all sorts of people who say that they feel like they're communicated with by ETs or angels. Maybe
Man,
those are,
shout
you
out
know,
to
the same
LA,
thing,
man. They out there
via these like
burning.
numerology. 111.
Poor
222,
LA, man.
322,
Shout out
all
to
sorts of
LA,
people
man. Poor.
sort of say things like that.
Pray
and you
for
can kind of
LA.
laugh it off.
That's what I mean.
But
Pray for LA.
that is actually a long-standing tradition. Queen Elizabeth had a chief spy and magician.
Right.
His name was John Dee, and he claimed to communicate with angels via what he would call Enochian language. And I showed you some of these symbols.
Yes.
Aleister Crowley said, you know, similar thing, and he's probably a darker version of this.
Right.
You know, not necessarily the most savory guy, but he would communicate with these, you know, through Enochian language. And you said that these symbols looked somewhat like what you had seen.
Yes. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. I have a whole bunch of different perspectives that I think about because of seeing all this stuff after the fact.
Yeah.
And our minds are very fallible, you know, and so I don't know how much. I don't want to over speak it and add something that's not true on accident.
Well, I
So,
think the core details are remarkable unto themselves.
so I like trying to keep it to that because I don't want to screw with it, but it would appear like it's some kind of communication tool, or it's for sure it's trying to tell you something.
Did you feel like anything got downloaded into you, or you were
Not
you
at that
received
point.
a message?
He said not at that point.
But definitely, I could say after the fact.
Oh,
Is that it changed everything for me after that. And I don't know that it was because of the objects or because of what I was exposed, or if it was just because it made me think differently and led me down a different path.
So what happens at that point? Do you turn to these instructors and you say, hey guys, what the hell was that? You just get let out of the room? What happened?
Yeah, so we discussed a little bit more stuff. I remember they spoke about the object a little. It got brought up that somebody was potentially harmed in the retrieval of that item.
Okay. The gauntlet or the
Yeah,
orb,
the
or-
second item, that it had discharged some kind of energy, that somebody had been harmed or even possibly killed, and they were discussing that. And then we went back through the security checkpoints. We got upstairs. We were told not to discuss it with anybody else in the class. They were pretty serious when they told us that. And I'm pretty sure in our initial, whenever you go to like a military course, initially like the first day or two is like admin stuff. Mm-hmm. And so you're filling out all your paperwork and getting everything ready to start the class and the training. And so I'm sure you don't read all that stuff, especially when you go to class after class. So I'm sure we signed NDAs and stuff in that beginning part. We didn't sign anything additional after that. So there was nothing remarkable about that. We were just told not to discuss it with the class or not to discuss it outside of that.
So that was it.
That was it.
Go back to your normal life.
Go back to your normal life. I never was exposed to anything else again. It never got brought up again. I never spoke to the other Green Beret again.
what's
He was
up,
from a
champ?
different
Piff
team,
1000.
different,
What's up, man?
And we never spoke about it again.
I now personally know from some contacts in Navy Special Warfare that Naval Surface Warfare Crane does deal in the most exotic adversary weaponry. It also deals with the DOE, the Department of Energy, and our nuclear capabilities. And it frequently coordinates with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is just a 3-hour drive away. In fact, my contacts told me that if Wright-Patterson is the center of the Air Force's most exotic off-world reverse engineering efforts, Naval Surface Warfare Crane is the center of the Navy's off-world reverse engineering efforts. All of this just further corroborates Randy's story. And where have we heard of off-planet technology before? Well, Harold Malmgren, a top advisor to JFK, Nixon, LBJ, and Ford, claimed that he was personally briefed on other world technologies by Richard Bissell of the CIA. This story is a huge deal given Malmgren's unimpeachable credentials, and Richard Bissell founded and set up Area 51 on behalf of the CIA. Can Malmgren and Bissell's other world technology now be called off-world technology? The same off-world technology that Randy saw? Why come out?
Make sure
now
you
and
hit that
why
like
talk
button,
to me
champ.
about it?
A good friend of mine, Mike Herrera, came out. I saw David Grush was brave enough to come out. That guy had some
David, so it's
really
like it's
high-level
all mixed
information
together.
and-
Hey, thank you
and
for that
took
like,
a lot of
champ.
risk doing that. And who am I to protect my little story? I think it's important as part of the story. And, I think it's important to tell it because it adds to the credibility and
Yeah,
all
man,
these
this
guys
guy
that are doing
really
it.
went to
So
court.
I
Yeah.
just think it's the right thing to do. Hopefully, there's other people that can explain what that was. I mean, that would be some nice closure for me to be able to find out if that was actually off-world tech.
How has your life changed since that experience? Because even though you weren't able to speak about it again, you never experienced anything like it where you were maybe shown secret tech in a classified facility. I can imagine that just being extremely ontologically shocking to the point where your aperture, your measurement tool, that is, you know, what you see and are interested in, opens up.
Well,
Watching the Blind Frog Ranch and the Skinwalk. What's that, champ? I haven't seen that.
I mean, yeah, immediately that changed for me. I got back that night later than everybody else, obviously, to the barracks, and I couldn't sleep, and I stayed up all night thinking about, like, does this mean aliens are real? Like, what does this mean? And I just, it was absolutely shocking to my
he went
state
down the rabbit hole
awareness
pretty
and
much. My dude
my
went down the
belief
rabbit
systems,
hole.
and it took a
He
bit,
went home
took a bit for
and-
me to wrap my mind around that. And
Yeah.
what helped was it kind of sent me down the rabbit hole of all this stuff. I started getting into the other stories. I started taking them maybe more seriously and not just brushing them off as bullshit.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and so it did open my aperture. It did allow me to start looking at other things. Then I started we talked about the Stephen Greer stuff, and he talked about consciousness and meditation being a component of communications. I started meditating.
Consciousness.
And all those things
It's
have
all
helped
in your mind.
benefit me in my life in significant ways.
So it's almost been healing in some sense or something.
Initially, it wasn't, and because of that, I think it ultimately turned out to be. Yeah,
I think that's a
Right, right,
common
right, right,
story
right.
of you experience something kind of paranormal.
Right.
It shocks you,
Shocks you.
busts you out of your
Reality.
comfort zone. And then you realize your comfort zone was actually kind of limited and
Yeah.
not always the most positive orientation towards the world. And this opens you up to all these other possibilities and can be dark and scary and lonely, but it also
Yeah.
leads you down kind of a more spiritual path.
Yeah.
I think the big component of that was I was so in my ego
Hell yeah.
those times. Like obviously, I did jobs like being a fireman and being a Green Beret, not because I wanted
Astral
recognition for that
projection
stuff. I did it because I wanted to
on the
to help
Discovery
people
Channel.
and
Okay.
and do something good
Hell
for people.
yeah. Gotta check
That's what
that
drove
out.
me to those careers. But also, there was a part of me that enjoyed being recognized as that person, right? Like people look at firemen like your local heroes, and Green Berets are badasses. And
Yeah.
that I thought that was cool.
Hell yeah. Homie's a Green
that-
Beret, bro.
That happened, and
A Green
like
Beret.
I told you last night, I kind of had
My dude.
sort of an ego
My dad
death,
was a Marine, man.
I would call it, and
You know, so
I didn't give a shit.
you know,
about
he used
any
to
of
always
that
say
anymore.
Green
Yeah.
Berets.
But it allowed
My
me to
dude.
appreciate the things I've done more, because it wasn't anymore about like what people thought about it. It was just because it was the right thing to do, and I felt good about, even better about it.
Sounds pretty positive.
Sure.
Yeah. And meeting Michael Herrera, how did that come about? For context for the audience, Michael Herrera has gone on a couple of podcasts, probably most notably Sean Ryan. And this is a guy who was definitely deployed in Indonesia. He was with his unit, and he sees a craft.
What I remember is kind of like a pyramid shape at the top, like this, because I remember seeing some shading, and then it had corners.
Oh, at the
right?
top.
And I
Okay,
remember
okay.
seeing these vents, at least that's what it looks like, on each of the corners like this.
Yo, check it out. Imagine, you know how like
I remember
he said
seeing
it's
some
pyramid at the
shading.
top like
Then it
that,
ha-
right? Imagine that pyramid top right there actually lands on the pyramids, you know, like right at the top, pop, you know, connects it.
Corners, right? And I remember seeing these vents, at least that's what it looks like, on each of the corners like this. There's
Vents.
a vent here, and it was like it was positioned on the lines,
Have vents on
like
it,
this.
positioned on the line.
And then on each corner,
Oh, it had
when
vents
this
on the
thing took
top.
off, it had lights that would pop on, which would have been like red, yellow, green, and blue are the only ones I remember.
Oh.
It kind of had a line that went like this.
And remember all the times like when we used to when before we knew all this stuff, we used to always say like, nah, look, it's got lights, it's not a UFO. Remember we used to always see like things like, yo, that looks strange, right? And it'd be like, nah, but it got blinking lights though. So we used to always had the whole thing where it was like, oh no, UFOs don't have lights, blinking lights. It's supposed to be one crazy solid light or whatever. Now I'm telling you that like
and it had some sort
You
of
feel
scale
me?
pattern that I estimate is
discharges.
octagonal, but it could be.
At Challenger School, fun and achievement
The
keep
megaliths
students
are
motivated,
gas.
and a
I
motivated
know,
student
bro. That's what
discovers
I'm
the strength of his
saying.
own mind.
It's the gas
Could
stations,
honestly
bro.
be circular. It could be square. I
It's
wasn't
like a
close
Tesla.
enough to
Boy, that's the Tesla
depict it.
spots. They come and
This
boop,
was the blackest,
you know?
darkest thing that I have ever seen in my life.
All of a
Wait,
sudden,
wait.
this
Hold on. I missed some stuff.
It could honestly be circular. It could be
Hold
square.
on.
Had some sort of scale pattern that I estimate is octagonal, but it could honestly be circular. It could be square. I wasn't close enough to depict it. This was the blackest, darkest thing that I have ever seen in my life.
all of a sudden this like what he thinks maybe is this DOE, Department of Energy paramilitary unit with far superior weaponry and kind of apparel shows up, basically swears his unit to secrecy and takes control of the situation. He was later back channeled with from somebody claiming to be part of the quote unquote legacy UFO program. And this person says, hey, you saw some really gnarly stuff out there. What we were doing is actually, and this is where it gets dark and weird, rounding up
worse
people from disaster zones like Indonesia at the time and testing their psionic abilities, so their ability to interact with these exotic crafts, so that we could maybe, basically do flight testing with these people. And again, it's just another data point for your story, because you're talking about this kind of mind matter interaction connection, and they're doing that stuff in Indonesia. And this is a guy, by the way, Michael Herrera, correct me if I'm wrong, because you know him well. I think he owns.
So the question is it like they're trying to find a special person that can operate this vehicle, like almost like where it's like not everyone can operate this vehicle, and it's like how free of a mind can you? I don't know.
Runs a very successful business in Colorado. Yeah. Like he is like, it's literally zero reason. If anything, he's lost business over coming out.
He did not. Yeah, it doesn't benefit him to do this. Like he did it because the same reason I'm doing it. It was the right thing to do. But yeah, I mean, his story is crazy, man. Like definitely people should look into that because
it's fascinating.
Like who knows how much dark stuff's really going on tied to all this, and if that's why they fight to keep this secret part of this so compartmentalized and secret. I don't know, man.
And how'd you meet him? Was it through your newfound interest in kind of out there stuff from your experience?
Well, yeah. And then some of the stuff he talked about, like he brought up some of the stuff that the unit had. I knew some of I added some stuff that I thought maybe we chatted on social media and then kind of just became friends through that.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Once you kind of come out of the woodwork, stick your head out of the water, you see that, there's some other people who've experienced some pretty crazy stuff. I've found through my own, research in this area, I think the common misconception.
And I love all the stuff that's coming out now, man. It's
people in the government,
crazy.
They're
man.
like these normies or something. It's the opposite.
Absolutely.
People in the government are more conspiratorial than people outside of the government. And I think it's because there are people like you. You're the extreme version of this.
Hell
but there are
yeah,
so many people like you who've experienced weird stuff while working in the government.
Right.
And then it's like this kind of don't look over there, but like you kind of file it away forever. And you kind of saw the little thing in the room
you saw that in the corner, champ. We saw that.
And there's a lot of that.
Yeah, it's what we say, like peering behind the curtain. Like once you do that,
it's like that person who got that mole right there. They don't want you to look at it. Be like, hey, would you look? Don't look at that mole.
Can't go back.
Can't go back.
Yeah.
Damn.
I think we're both aware, and it's kind of an open secret at this point. I mean, you have Ross Coulthart saying publicly on News Nation, there's a story. It's going to break in January. Things are going to get kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It seems like an open secret in UFO disclosure world that a lot's going to come out in this area.
It is.
And I think both of us feel that could be extremely positive. And negative.
What you got going on right now,
Pandora's
Chan? I'm about to
box.
show you. About to show you what I got going on in a second, man. I got some good stuff going on. Look, this is what I got in the tent number 1 right there. That's in this one right here. Nah, wait. Yeah, it's back here. That one. Wait, nah, I'm backwards. In that one right there. In that one right there. And then I'm gonna show you what's in the other tent. Tent number 2. That's in that one right there. See, I don't know why I'm so backwards. I could have just went like this. Yeah, I could have went like that. Yep. So in this tent right here, that's what you're seeing right now. That's what you're seeing. And then see, that's all Trap House right here. The one that you see, the logo that you see at the top. Where's it at? Right there. Boom. So that logo right there, right? That logo right there is all that over there. It's all in there. That's what you're looking at on the screen right now. That's just tent number 1. Guava juice number 1 and 2 and banana juice. Damn, bro, that sounds fire right there. Running Black Diamond genetic clones I hunted from the last run. Damn, so you know it's gonna be fire if you kept those clones. Hell yeah. That's what's up, champ. I'm in flower right now, man. I'm about what is this? Let's say like week 2. Week 1 or 2. I think it's week 2. You barely got your little cotton balls right there. And then so that's in tent number 2. And let's go to tent number, because that's all one strain right there. That's all the Trap House. That's just the Trap House. And in this tent right here, this tent right here, I got a few strains in here. That's starting off with the wedding cake. That's a wedding cake cross with the Trap House. We don't know what that's gonna do. That's brand new, and I'm anticipating it's gonna be some fire. So that right there, we got some grape. That's the Trap House grape. That's the recent one, and I believe this one here is a cookie. I'm not sure, man. I think that's a grape or a cookie. And then we're gonna move on to the center over here. That's another wedding cake. She's short. She's real short right there in the middle. This wedding cake, and this is another sister. That's another wedding cake there. So I have 3 phenols of the wedding cake. I'm anticipating they're gonna be fire. And this one back here, she's pretty tall, but showing me claw signs a little bit, maybe a little too overwatered, because she's in the corner over there, so like all the water like drains to her. She could be a little, gotta lift her up. Yeah, that's what I gotta do. I gotta lift her up. Retard, I gotta lift her up a little bit. Oh, and then my bad, so I got some cookies in the bag too. These are from the old run. I brought these from the old run. This is the old, I had bred these like, man, about a year ago. And I had just put them away because I was so on the Trap House breeding that one, working on that one. But this tent right here is pretty much all seeds. Everything is from seed right here. So we did one full tent, and the other one is all Trap House, and this one right here is all seeds from different strains. Every seed is different. We got some grapes in there. Yeah, that's the bottle. Just the little my little stuff I got. It's cold as shit in here. Look, it's 58 degrees. Cold as hell. Hey, y'all, thank you for that like, man. They look healthy. Thank you, bro. And they actually, you see it right there in the little corners right there. They have a little. I don't know if you caught it right there, but they're yellowing out on me, champ. They're yellowing out on me a little bit. It's these are all from seeds, so I still haven't figured these out yet. You know. You see my Trap House over here. They're thriving. They're thriving over here. Let me see if I can bring that back. That's in tent 1. No, that's not it. Over here. It's in tent 2. You see, this is all one strain right here. Everything's Trap House. And I love it so much that I just always have 1 tent of it full. And then the other one will just be like, I need to breed something, man. I need to get back. See, because, you know, I'm 702 exotic seed code, but I don't sell nothing. I don't have nothing. Like, I don't sell nothing. I want to get legal with the, here in Nevada, you could get legal with the hemp licensing, you know? So I could be a hemp grower, and then I could be I can have a license for hemp too, for the seed production. And that's the way we're going to do it. We're going to do it legit, you know? We're going to get it. Yeah, all cocoa, champ. All cocoa in 1 gallon, you know? 1 gallon with the drippers. So that's what we want to do. We want to get it legit and legal, and then that way we can be at the smoke shops, you know, with paperwork and everything. Everything's gonna be all paperworked up, you know. That way they can't take nothing away. I did a lot of time, man, in jail. From before we used to have. I have so many grow lights here from the last, you know. You wouldn't even imagine what I did today. I threw out so many ballasts today, like old hydro HPS ballasts, like the big bricks. I couldn't even give them away. If you look on my channel, I had like over 40 of them, and I was giving them away. That's actually a 3x3. They 3x3s. 2 3x3s, and I have another 2x2 over there where I keep the mothers. I have the one mother of the trap house, and I have another mother of the trap house grape. Those are the only two. Oh, and I kept some clones of the wedding cake just in case they come off fire. Just in case those wedding cakes come out fire, we kept a clone of them, man. Hey, thank you, apple butter. Hell yeah. I'm in 2 gallons. Quick fills cocoa. Yeah, man. I'm you know, I did a lot of work in electrical, man. For like 18 years I did electrical for a long time, and I would do, you know, big cultivations like from ground up. Like I was honored here in Vegas. You know, if you're an electrician, at least one time you'll do a grow house, right? You'll go to a grow, and then you get to see how it is and everything. And they all grow in small pots, man. That's what they all do. Yeah, bro, I have so many lights and hoods and everything right now. Let me see, like I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. I still have 30 hoods in here, bro. I have like a whole 30 hoods in here. Like the big blockbuster hoods. I gave them away. I gave as many as I could. It's a wall of hoods, like the bulbs. I got the bulbs with them too. Like I have the bulbs inside of it, like big old bulbs. You know, 1,000 watts. That's what I used to use back in the day. Let me see if I can take out a bulb. Nah, I can't take out a bulb, but yeah, that's what it's a bunch of.
And
let's go back to this, man.
I've always formerly been on the side, release as much as we can because I think
hold on a second, it's the audio.
But then it's
does
funny
that.
as you get this kind of exciting,
There we go.
you know, things are bursting at the seams, tipping point. It also gets a little scary, and you realize that there is something adaptive about materialist reductionism. And
Yeah, with all these
thinking
interfaces, the
that
audios
this
get
world we live in
crazy,
is
bro.
extremely
It took me a
limited
while
and
to
just
figure
like
everything out, man.
random atoms bouncing off of one another. Like there's something actually very adaptive about that from like leading your life in a normal way on a day-to-day basis.
Bro, a socket in my son's room shorted out last night. Shut the whole second floor down. Damn. Yeah, it's a lot, man. You won't believe the stuff I done seen doing electrical. I done seen. Yeah, one time I went to this call, right, and this lady had some issue, and her son was literally in, like just exactly how you said, in the socket, shorted out. But he was still playing. So he was playing on his computer, right? And he had so much stuff plugged into his computer. I don't know how it didn't like short out, but it was that socket that burnt up behind the socket, and the lead leaving out is what shorted out into the other rooms. So it's like, not because, dog, I'm telling you, the whole receptacle was burnt on the back. So his still worked because he had other stuff tied into it, but it would get so hot that it burnt the line leaving out. So I'm telling you, bro, I believe it.
So how do we lead this in a positive way?
Obviously, based on what I'm doing, my belief is that the truth is what we all need to fight for, right?
Yeah.
Getting the truth out, and I think it's important. But also, maybe there is a component of this there's a reason why some of this was kept back. Maybe there is and I could say that there certainly.
I mean, if you got to think about a reason, right? You're not going to tell your enemy what type of guns you got. So it's like, I feel like, yeah, of course, man. You know, the Navy, military, whatever it is, the U.S. government, whatever you want to call them, right? They're gonna keep that stuff secret, and they're not gonna want to tell nobody. They're not gonna tell them what type of gun they're using. You know, that's their guns, bro. That's their weapons.
Part of it that if was told to everyone, would change reality. But ultimately, it needs to happen. I just think we have to be ready for it as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like, but I think what you're doing is a huge part of that. I mean, getting awareness out there about it, talking about it. Our reality might not be what we think, and
Yeah.
we might have stumbled across this historically in the past, and it might have been bad then. You know?
Well, the point you're getting at, I think, is the fact that we're not alone in the universe is not the tip of the spear. That's
No.
not the thing
Ooh.
that. It's funny. You hear reporters like Ross Coulthard, Jeremy Corbell, people who are
Yeah, man.
honestly closer
Melted
than
on
people
the
like me,
backside.
and maybe a little more risk averse as far as speaking to people in and around the quote unquote legacy UFO program. And it seems like they always get to a point in the conversation at the end of the conversation where the person on the inside says, "You would not be pro disclosure if you knew everything I knew."
Ooh.
And I worry that there's actual merit to that.
Yo, he said you would not be pro disclosure because you know that's what we're considered, right? We're considered pro disclosure. He said if you knew what I knew.
I do, because I think we're dealing with sacred spiritual things.
And what'd he say?
I do. I worry that there's actual merit to that. I do, because I think we're dealing with sacred spiritual things, ontological truths, and at least in the military context, you're talking about that in using that in instrumental, weaponistic, ways that are kind of not sacred, like for our kind of brutal, needs and desires and geopolitical realities. And that's weird territory.
Yeah, man. I think there's a lot of merit to that. There's things I wouldn't want my son, for example, to know. I wouldn't want him to know that that's a true part of reality. So what does that mean for everyone? I don't know. It's a tricky, slippery slope.
It's extremely tricky because, like, you drive around LA, you drive around any major city, Las Vegas, any major city in the US, and you look around, and from a kind of architecture, infrastructure perspective, most of these places have not been, they're crumbling. And they haven't been updated since the 60s and 70s. And now we have, it's interesting, the National Science Foundation officially coming out saying we're looking into extended electrodynamics. And that is basically this new paradigm in science that involves a scalar field, exotic electromagnetic wave types that get into, like, the works of Tesla, this kind of unknown guy named Thomas Townsend,
Almost like that smart city that they're talking about in LA. Wink, wink.
who's now probably being vindicated.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the ability to manipulate gravity through electromagnetism and do all sorts of stuff through high speed rail. Let's bring the Concorde back with flight that get to Europe in an hour or whatever. And so that's really important, right? That's important, and ontological truth is important. And then there are risk factors as well. And so it's this weird technological forcing function where it can be really good and it can be really bad.
Damn.
Yeah. And I mean, I sure as hell don't know the answer. I hope that we're contributing in a positive way.
I think we have to listen to the people close.
Oh, so okay, you got a channel? I'm gonna check you out, champ. Hell yeah. Shout out to you, champ. Keep making them videos. Hell yeah.
To the action on these things. And so it's like the experiencers, you're an experiencer, at least of the technology. And most of those people they come out saying, we're getting a warning that, these things care about.
Let's see what's up real quick before I forget, because I be getting a little stoned sometimes, champ, You feel me? I'm gonna make sure. So let me see if I can. We can find you, champ. You gotta get it. You gotta make it a little simpler than that. Let me see if I can put this right here. Is that you? You gotta let me know if that's you. That's you? That's you right there? Let me know, champ. That's you? Let's see. That way I can hit that subscribe. Let me know if that's you. Because it takes a second. All right, cool. Chapo, right there. All right, let's get back to this.
Nuclear facilities, because that is the center of the apocalypse. If you were to place the end
Yo,
of the
you
world
finna
anywhere,
come through my
it would be at
algorithm
these-
now.
these
I'll watch you.
clearance facilities where we can blow up the world.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they're showing up there is probably a warning to, it's not, they're not, I don't think they're prepping the battle space. I think they are like doing recon on our abilities. I think they're saying, don't blow yourselves up. But I could be right. That's again, our interpretation, but
Well, yeah. And so I can look at that both ways, because I can look at it from just my human open heart way of looking at it and say, yeah, I agree. And then the tactical mindset I have tells me,
Hell yeah, champ.
but we don't prepare for the best case scenario. We prepare for the worst case scenario.
Yes.
Right? And so what is that? And that is they are prepping the battlefield. So we have to observe and be aware and be ready.
sure. So interesting. I mean, we talked about Diana Pasulka, this religious studies professor.
So cool, man.
She's amazing. And she wrote a book about modern UFO phenomena as a religious phenomena. And she meant to write about it as a psyop, a psychological opera. She was like, I think this is probably all fake. Then she falls into it and she's like, oh my God, this is very real.
Yeah.
And
Hell yeah, it's
it's this
real.
interesting thing where you stare at the abyss
Yeah.
long enough, it
Yeah,
starts to
I like
stare
that.
back or
Yeah.
whatever. You fall into it. And she's like, oh my God, this becomes real, and almost realizes that what we are looking at now is what a lot of divine contact experiences have been in the past. And she talks about St. Francis of Assisi,
Right.
who sees this flaming torch, orb thing on Mount Laverne in, I think, 12th or 13th century Italy. And it's to him, it's
Back
this
in the
forcing
day,
function
bro.
towards God. And he actually has what seems like electromagnetic radiation as a result of this experience, what we would now call that.
Yeah.
And then actually writes in his diary, the last thing he writes is the Greek letter tau, which means conversion. And so it's like this forced, it's like he had this angelic experience, and it's this forced conversion to Christianity. And then it's called the stigmata because there was a stigma around his experience. And talk about modern
Damn.
UFO abduction cases, there's this big stigma, and there's this
Yeah. Hell yeah.
desire to not disclose. And this,
Right.
it's so fascinating.
Talk is fat.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I do
especially
this,
like a
man.
lot
That's
of
why I
stuff she
get
talks about
on
when she
here and
talks
do
about
this,
these-
man. I
all these-
wouldn't love to do anything more than to sit here with y'all and talk about this.
that have been key contributors to like rocketry and the way that they got their ideas, and that's wild, man.
Yeah.
Hell
that
yeah.
the fathers,
What are we missing? Like what do I need to be doing?
He
that
said,
I'm
what
not
are we-
doing? Like
what are
that's
we
kinda
missing?
Shit I started digging into, and I mean, there's something to it.
Well, whenever somebody's doing something kind of
Hell yeah.
trippy or unconventional, but they're also a key contributor in a
Enoch said he left the earth and was able to observe it. I know, right? I did hear about that story, bro. That he left for, and then have you heard about the Majestic 12 that left, and then they're still on another planet to this day? They say that they donated. They're still there.
conventional sense to a core program
Hell
or
yeah.
capability. You have to
Love
look
history.
into that. And so in this case,
And that's real history right there. We're not talking about like, how we conquered and stuff like that. That's history too. I mean, obviously it plays a big role of everything too. We're talking about like, dog, when shit started, bro,
the fathers of all of the space programs, American space program is a guy named Jack Parsons, founded Jet Propulsion Labs. The Russian space program, a guy named Tchaikovsky. And then the German space program, Werner von Braun. All of these guys thought that they were in touch with non-human entities.
Damn.
Tesla's a great example too.
And Tesla too.
said
Yeah,
that he
man.
communicated with
Yeah.
extraterrestrials in Colorado. So yeah, you have to start maybe taking some of these things seriously. And a lot of these guys say that is actually essential to our, their ability to actually work in these rocketry programs. And so this guy named Tim Taylor, who is a modern NASA mission controller,
NASA
works
mission
with Elon
controller.
Musk.
Right.
I've met this guy. And I actually am invested in a rocket company, and I was at,
Right.
it was
The
struggling.
Majestic 12,
And I was
bro.
like, man, how do we get this thing
Real
to work? 'Cause
people.
He's this famous NASA mission controller. I was like,
Yeah.
give me advice or whatever. And I was grasping at straws.
Yeah.
And he goes, you have to think about what they want as far as how to get the rocket to work. And I was like, you mean like non-human intelligence. Yeah.
That's
What?
wild.
What? Mission control. I was like,
Yeah.
give me advice or whatever. And I was grasping at straws.
Yeah.
And he goes, you have to think about what they want as far as how to get the rocket to work. And I was like, you mean like non-human intelligence? Yeah.
That's wild.
Wild.
Yeah.
What
And
the
I'm
listening
listening
to
to this guy. I'm like, is he psyoping me? I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's a real NASA mission controller.
dude.
Yeah.
Works at the highest level.
Well, look at all
Damn.
the names of the programs.
Right.
Like that
Ar-
should tell
yeah.
you something too, right?
Artemis.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And you start looking into that.
The
man. It's-
iconography, the
Tell it-
second
yeah,
century Latin writing.
Exactly,
On,
man. Like it starts to. I mean,
Oh.
just keep your eyes open.
yeah.
So their
It feels
names
like
mean
2025 is
something.
Sort of consciousness apotheosis of sorts. You have all of these converging, accelerating dynamics, and you have artificial intelligence, you have OpenAI, Anthropic, all sorts of spin outs and offshoots of these organizations that are buying up tons and tons of NVIDIA chips and in this massive race. And then the U.S. vis-a-vis
NVIDIA
China,
chips.
mainly China,
That's
but also
computer
Russia,
chips.
other adversaries. You have this global
So they're buying NVIDIA chips probably for the drones, right? They're just building hella drones with the NVIDIA chips.
AI race. You have,
For AI.
the Google quantum sycamore processor
That's
that
scary.
they just announced that they say might theoretically prove the many worlds hypothesis.
It's crazy.
It's
That's crazy.
You have those two things, and then you also have
Quantum.
the David Grush
Woo!
revelations that we're talking about today, and that your testimony, really provides more evidence for, which is that we're not alone, and that reality is way weirder than we think. And all three of these things seem to be converging. And I interviewed a guy named Matthew Pines, who's pretty connected in the kind of national security world, and he said that somebody in a very cleared to a lot of things, I think, at the Pentagon, said something like AI, quantum, plus the Grush stuff.
Yeah.
And that iron triangle of
AI,
dynamics
quantums,
will unleash
plus
a
the
whole
Grush
host
stuff.
of crazy possibilities.
Yeah.
And as people in the national security state, this guy or whatever, he's like, that's what we're tracking. So
Yeah.
how do we make sense of this?
Dude, I mean, I 100% think a lot of these things are connected in some way that we might not quite understand yet.
Metaverses.
I don't know. I mean, we could theorize about it all day, but I know there are people that are trying to stay ahead of the game on that. And an example of that is my good friend Chris Wright. He's CEO of a company called AITC, the Artificial Intelligence Trust Council, and I'm part of that as well. And the mission for us is to try to slow down the growth of AI, at least to a point where the people have a say in how far this goes. Because right now it's
Damn,
a
he's trying
runaway
to
train, and
slow-
no one really knows what's happening behind the curtain. And
Slow
there's really
down
no oversight
AI.
on a potentially the most deadly could be weapon system ever developed.
Yep.
And why I say that is any significant amount of technology that's capable of doing great things is sometimes also capable of great destruction. I'm telling you about drones that you could drop the size of smaller than the palm of your hand. You could drop hundreds of thousands of them out of the back of a C-130.
Damn.
Could be trained to individually seek out and kill individual targets. Without a human component. To take away the human component from the decision to take a life, I think that's where we're crossing the line we shouldn't cross.
It's extremely dystopian from a warfare perspective.
Yeah.
As early as, and probably earlier than this, but like Donald Rumsfeld, I remember,
Yeah,
in the
nanotech-
Bush 43 ad.
Bro, have you heard of that nanotechnology where it can put together itself like after it's been inside like people's bodies already?
And Secretary of Defense, his whole thing was we need to roboticize or autonomize American military. And it was probably like too early in the technology curve at the time and sort of got, semi-rejected.
Yeah.
Now it feels like all this stuff is just happening. And once you start to get these envoys that are like doing things on your behalf,
Yeah.
you get weird decisions made. And the stories around, fingers, aborts of like nuclear,
Yes.
possibility. Like that's always because a human is in the loop.
Exactly.
Right. But
The
you look
Russia,
at
the Russia thing.
yeah,
right?
the Russia thing is a great example.
Yeah.
It was in the 80s or something,
Yeah.
and where that guy could have this close. That guy could have caused global cataclysm, and because of his own moral conscience and no superior, he didn't basically activate the nuke.
Yeah.
And
What an AI system have done, it would have made the decision immediately to just neutralize the threat.
it would have been a cold, hard calculation, zero intuition.
Yep.
And I think there's something about, the whole AI conversation, which is that the brain is a Turing machine, and it's this, calculator on steroids. And so if the brain is just this calculator, we're going to recreate consciousness via AI. And I think it's this total misnomer and misunderstanding of the brain. I, in fact, think we learn with low data sets. Babies come out of the womb with some understanding of grammar, a fear of snakes, all sorts of things.
This is encoded in something deeper, right?
Way deeper. And we're not learning through these large data sets. There's something very different about remote viewing, right? How do you explain
the 100th
that?
monkey. You ever
Hell
heard about
yeah.
the 100th monkey?
No, what's the 100? I want to hear
Something
that.
you didn't know about.
Yeah, there's a lot I don't know about.
No, so I'm paraphrasing, man. So I'm probably getting hammered on this, but island of monkeys, certain type of monkey. I think it's in Japan that they have a species of monkeys that's separated by an island, the same species, but they're separated and they never interact with each other. Okay. They were doing experiments. They were dropping these potatoes on the island, and they were getting covered in dirt and sand when they dropped them on the beach. And one of the monkeys figured out, if I just take it to the water and wash it off, then I can eat it without the sand, right?
Yep.
Simple thing. Well, it taught the other monkeys how to do it, and quickly the whole island knew how to do that. As soon as that, they call it the 100th monkey, as soon as a certain number of monkeys were realized this is what they do, suddenly and instantaneously the other islands started doing it. And so they don't know exactly what that mechanism is, but they think there's some kind of component of consciousness that's tied to that that's allowing that to jump.
I think so.
And so, and there's other studies to that too. Like you saw the Stanford did the one with the light and the plants.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of that that's starting to come out in science that's showing us that consciousness might be there's a
Connected.
component to that that's we don't understand at all.
Well, we might have
deeper.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of uploading consciousness to the cloud and how
Hold on
weird
one
that
second.
sounds from an AI perspective, that might be going on with our conscious. We might have a client server side interaction with our consciousness, but that's way more magical and robust. And so a good example is the Bannister effect, where upload times are slower than download times. So breaking the 4-minute mile as the first person is going to be much harder than downloading that, going
That
through.
already exists,
And there's a guy named Rupert Sheldrake who studies all this stuff, and he says that if you grow a first crystal structure of its kind, it takes a long amount of time, because he thinks that that's proof that it's drawing from the local information field that hasn't been done before, so it takes a while for that new crystal structure. You grow that same crystal structure after that, it becomes much faster. Yes.
If you make a new chemical compound for the first time and you crystallize it,
What's up, Litwick?
that
What's
crystal
going on
form
with you,
won't have
champ?
existed before because it's a new compound.
She hit that
And the
like
more
button,
often you
man.
crystallize it, the easier it should get for crystals of that kind to form. And in fact,
That's amazing.
well, it is actually really well known to chemists that new compounds are very difficult to crystallize. You maybe wait years before you get the first crystal, but thereafter, it gets easier to crystallize all around the world.
That's insane. That's crazy. I think about sometimes athletic accomplishments too, where somebody
with the
pushes the
crystals.
bar just a little bit farther, and then all of a sudden it just seems easier or something, ostensibly. And you could attribute that to modern doping or something, but I think it's something more than that. It's almost as if an accomplishment that formerly was thought to be impossible is uploaded to a central monad or repository or something, and then if somebody calls upon it with the right resonance in the future, it's that much easier because you have more data in the repository or something like that. He also shows that if 1,000 people or 10,000 people do a crossword puzzle, and a new person does that crossword puzzle the next day, they'll finish it a little bit faster than a random crossword puzzle that nobody has done prior.
So that ties into the same thing with the 100th monkey, man.
Same thing, 100th monkey, and just innovation popping up at different places around the world at the same time. The invention of the wheel or the invention of all sorts.
Diane talks about that too, right? Where rocketry kind of happening simultaneous in different places.
Why is it happening in Russia and the U.S. and then later in Germany all at the same time? Yeah, there's some sort of maybe predetermined arc of technology. And then you look at how science occurs, and it's way more revelatory if you actually look at the descriptions from the scientists.
Yeah.
They're not like, I calculated XYZ and then the answer came to me. It came to the architecture of the hydrogen atom came to Wolfgang Pauli in a dream.
Right.
The Dirac equation came to him while he was staring at the fire. This idea that the mind is fully separate from an objective material world, I think that'll probably go away pretty soon.
Yeah. There's a
My
concept
bad.
out
I
there
had to
where
grab
I
something real
forget
quick.
who said it, but they talk about us being like a receiver.
Yes.
And that the consciousness field is like.
Hey,
it's
thank
the
you for that
signal
light,
and
champ.
it's tapping into that field, right? I think that's a cool analogy that actually makes a lot of sense when you start to answer some of these questions of how this is happening, right?
Totally.
I like that analogy. That kind of sits well with me.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, transmission theory of consciousness. Yeah,
We're just tapping in, man.
totally.
tapping into
Yeah,
it,
and
yeah.
maybe our job is to like work on us as receivers, like work on the the energy field
Well, if
around
you think
it.
about it like that too, like we're almost like a technology ourselves, and we're if you eat
Definitely
healthy,
a
you work
receiver
out,
for sure.
the signal's better.
Definitely
Yeah.
receiving.
Yeah.
Better information, better downloads. You know.
Well, what's happening when you daydream? Are you constructing those thoughts?
Yes, because every single time I'm sitting there, I always tell everybody, and I remember Joe Rogan said something about this where he's like, you get to thinking about something, right? And you don't have an idea, and all of a sudden, boom, you got the idea. It's like you channeling ideas, you know? But I believe not only we're a receiver, we have to be transmitting something too, or else manifestation wouldn't be real, right? Because you have to, channel out.
Actively? No. It seems
Right.
like that you're receiving things from elsewhere. Like if you're in a dreamlike state,
Yeah.
you are not consciously creating the semantic thoughts, but
Absolutely.
they're pouring in. And there's this question in neuroscience
Yeah.
of like the binding problem. Like they know how all the disparate parts of your brain work. Broca's area is speech,
Right.
Wernicke's area is reading comprehension. But we don't know how it blends together into the seamless perception.
And then they can remove a part that's
But
supposed
we-
to do
we
this
more
thing,
water
and
though,
then it will
champ,
find
you
a way
know?
around and to rewrite and do it anyway.
Exactly. It's
So-
somehow malleable and understands how to.
Yeah.
And it's like a radio. Like if you were to remove the capacitor or the battery of the radio, maybe the music would stop playing or not play in the right way. But
This
Yeah, that
game,
thing right there looks crazy.
you're not ready for.
you really need to know that it's tapping into an electromagnetic
Hell
field.
yeah,
because
big
the
time
antenna-
manifest.
The field's still there, and that's the thing tapping into Vivaldi's Four Seasons or whatever's playing.
It's crazy, man, because
it's the field.
It kind of sounds really cliche or whatever, man, but I manifested this right here, just honestly what I'm doing right now, bro,
It's not
and then like you
being
part of
produced
it, champ,
inside of
What do you think? Just
Y'all
your
part of
opinion,
this.
is that-
Y'all part of
the
my
playing field,
manifestation, man,
Is that where that sits? Is that it?
Weird.
Is that
This is goes
Physically?
gets
kinda
into
weird,
stuff
but
that's
to
way
say,
smarter
but
than me,
real.
deeper
Yeah.
than me. But I think there's a sub-quantum field that deals with
Okay.
quantum potentials, so vector and scalar potentials that
Ooh.
deal with
Yeah.
actually what we were talking about before, as far as anomalies in
Yeah.
electromagnetism, where
Yeah,
this guy
you-
named
man,
Lorentz
you guys
who
on
had
the
this
right.
equation where he set the derivatives of the vector and scalar potentials to zero. But in fact, I think Oliver Heaviside, who kind of was one of the fathers of electromagnetism, knew this. And basically, I think there's
Electromagnetism.
another field involving scalar and vector potentials, and that explains these
Yeah.
anomalies in electromagnetism, like the Aronoff-Bohm effect,
Manifest
where
destiny,
you don't
champ.
have electric fields or magnetic fields present, but you do have these potentials present.
right?
And so maybe a lot arises around these potentials, and maybe the potentials themselves are sort of the quantum code, if you will, of the universe, which is kind of information theoretic a la John Wheeler. And again, I'm speaking about things that are well beyond my pay grade, but these are
But it ties into the same thing. And I also have you heard of the E8 theory, where it's like the
No.
8-dimensional quasi crystal is projecting reality onto? Oh man, you gotta
what's
look into
that?
that. Dude. You dig that?
That's-
Because that gets a little beyond my understanding of it. Because I just this is like hobby level, like looking into it for me.
me too.
All right,
I
you
don't
gotta
have
tell
that-
us about
I don't
that.
have the background, but they talk about this that our reality is a projection from an 8-dimensional plane, and then and they can correlate that with all the different particles that tie into. And the way they describe it's really cool. Like they show a 2-dimensional depiction of a 3-dimensional crystal on as a shadow, and they show you how it moves and rotates when they rotate the 3-dimensional piece. And they say if you can imagine that 8 levels up, and like that's how that's projecting down into 3D.
That's fast.
That's pretty cool, man.
Well, it's almost like, this, like you have these platonic solids, these, platonic objects that like a tesseract.
Right.
You cannot visualize a tesseract.
No.
You can only see the shadow of a tesseract.
Right. And that's a 3D
And that's a 3D
object.
rendering
Talking
of this
about
higher thing. And then you have to ask, is the world itself a 3D rendering of this higher thing going on? Which goes back to like Plato's cave.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And are we just rendering it in this like kind of low level substrate that's all we can kind of comprehend?
And then that's the quantum, what is it, the double slit experiment that would explain, how we collapse the wave function with consciousness, right?
I think an extremely valid hypothesis that's actually consistent with the Copenhagen school's interpretation that measurement collapses the wave function is that there's something actually about our minds that collapse the wave function. And every serious quantum field theorist entertained this at the time. And now you have modern.
Now, champ, if I heard some typical stoner saying some of this stuff, I'd be a little bit skeptical. But these guys, man, I don't know.
Theorists saying no, it's just the particles kind of once they interact, once the waves interact, they collapse into particles or whatever. Right. And it's like, well, what about like what Schrodinger himself thought, or what about what von Neumann thought?
Well, it's like Sean Carroll talks about this. He's got like a very strict view on this, where it's like this is just how the math plays out or whatever. And then you go like the other extreme where it's like, no, this is saying that consciousness is collapsing the wave function. And so is it actually when they say this?
Wait, I didn't understand that. He mumbled that last part, yo.
Act of measurement or just the act of observing? Which one?
So Copenhagen school keeps it very humble.
Hell
in
yeah.
claims, and they just say the act of measurement.
Take that dab from me, champ.
Function. And I'm glad you brought up Sean Carroll because he's the most popular kind of quantum guy now. And what he'll say is reality itself, quantum reality itself is probabilistic. But that is totally antagonistic. And that is again, and I'm a fan of Sean Carroll. And he's like explained all sorts of things that like a stupid person like me can understand, So I'm grateful to him. But he'll say things like reality is fundamentally probabilistic. Like somehow Schrodinger's wave equation, which is probabilistic, is the substrate of reality. Schrodinger himself would talk about Schrodinger's cat of existing in superposition,
right,
as a joke because he did. There's even clips of Roger Penrose being like,
he wasn't serious.
He wasn't serious. He didn't actually think that the cat could exist in superposition.
He was almost using it as a way of like showing the ridiculousness.
Showing how ridiculous and weird, as far as ontological truth, the quantum stuff points to. But saying we actually probably need to figure this out.
People often say, well,
Quantums.
maybe with a sufficient technicality we could build a Schrodinger's cat. That was not what Schrodinger's point was. He was saying this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can't really have a cat which is dead and alive at the same time.
Yeah. But it was a mere illustration of a wider point, right?
That's right.
I love how science and
the cat was dead and alive,
and science is all kind of coming together in this unique way. It's like you could look at it any way from any perspective, and you could find some truth.
It's awesome, man. Well, okay, so there's a lot of consciousness raising we're going to get out of this. There might be some bad. This is a Pandora's box. Things are going to get crazy.
Yeah.
How do we prepare
That's
for
crazy.
a world?
I like Michio Kaku too, champ. He's
stuff
really
that's
good.
Been kind of held in the back closet just gets busted wide open.
As far as just being prepared, dude, like if that worst case scenario is what happens, I think people need to start. Awareness is key, right? Starting to be.
You want to start pressing? Yeah, man. I need to start pressing too, man. That's a lot of lures too that I got right there that I need to press.
What's going on? Start digging in. Start identifying for you what's true. Use your discernment. Look into companies like RAITC that's trying to be a buffer for some of this and prevent the proliferation of AI and all these things. Join movements like ours. Go to your local.
Y'all just tuned in. Make sure you hit that
Vegas,
like button.
My company.
Subscribe to
Bravo
the
One Defense.
channel.
I teach people how to do basic survival stuff, how to operate a weapon safely, pistol, rifle, long range rifle.
Right. Go get that training.
To people in your local area that know that kind of stuff and train. Learn how to be proficient with a weapon. So in case you need to use one, you can. Learn some basic survival skills. How much food would you need to store to survive 6 months with the grid down? What kind of food would you want to store? If you can't cook. I mean, other than open flame, you know, like
Yeah, I wouldn't know what the store, man, to be honest with you.
prepared for, and
I
wouldn't
would
know what
not
to
be
do. And
prepared.
as soon as they don't have a grocery store to get their things, are they gonna be able to function? I mean,
No.
And also be prepared to defend yourself, because if you're not,
Hell
then you're
yeah.
just collecting shit.
Thank you, Lidwig. Thank you.
Toughest guy in your neighborhood, you know.
Yeah.
That's a joke that I think Bill Burr said. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's like, I feel like I'm just collecting shit from the toughest guy in my neighborhood. And he started preparing and getting ready.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, train, be ready, be aware.
Well, I think there was that moment right when the pandemic hit.
Right.
We had COVID-19, where it was like, all of a sudden, we didn't quite know what.
Yo, how he says that, how we didn't know about the COVID-19. It was crazy, yo. Like, just how me and my wife and everything, we would go out, and it was like, when we would come back with food, and we felt like we came back from, like, you know, killing a damn lion or something, yo.
Thing was, we were like all like about to lock down, and there was this extremely ominous feeling of like, is this actually the end of like the U.S. as we know it?
Yeah.
And it ended up not really being that. But I think keeping that little sense memory in mind is probably a healthy thing.
I mean, that was a real minor flu comparatively to anything serious.
Well, we didn't learn any lesson, right? So like the lessons would be, we should produce our own PPE, protective equipment, in the U.S.
Yes.
We were dependent on the country from which COVID came.
Yeah.
For protective equipment.
And they were tapped because they were using it.
Totally. So like at the very least, like, you know, we traded self-sufficiency for basically cheaper TVs on the coasts or whatever.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. And so like some sort of lesson around, you know, internal self-sufficiency, sovereignty,
Right,
and,
compared
you
to
know,
the
rebuilding the American
Spanish
manufacturing
flu.
base should have been the bare minimum takeaway. And it feels like we've done none of that. And in April or May of 2020, you have, you know, chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, saying, let's print a F ton of money and just infused, you know, our system. And you have this thing called the Cantillon effect, where that just accrues directly to equities, to the equity holding class. The rich got way richer. The amount of billionaires, I don't know if it's doubled or, you know, by an order of magnitude expanded. Wow. And then, you know, the rest of the country sort of left on, you know, UBI for a temporary period. And like, you know, a lot of businesses got gutted. And so talk about not learning the lesson, right? I mean, it's almost like we got redirected. And then simultaneous to all of that, I think.
And a lot of business started up though.
Entered. And I think we're sort of moved off our zombie path, and I think we've awoken to real truths.
Crazy how, because some people tanked, some people rose at that time.
You know, I feel definitely more awake in more recent times from all this.
Totally.
Like, more aware. Just I didn't feel like I was this aware of everything before, right? I mean, it feels different.
Same, and I think it's. Do you experience it being? 'Cause for me, it's been harder, but better and rewarding. And so it was almost like initially, especially, you feel like, you know, you're undergoing like hard changes to make yourself a better person.
Yeah.
But then on the other end of that, you're like, oh my God, like it was like almost like you were a zombie before, and you're kind of awake to all these realities in a really positive way.
100%.
100%.
Yeah,
Exactly how I feel. Absolutely.
Well, I hope the world wakes up, man. And I think by you telling your story, you know, I know you're going to play it down, but I do think you are just adding to this renaissance of consciousness and thought and ideas, as far as people knowing that there's a lot more out there.
Yeah, man. And our reality is just fine. Like we don't need to upload to the cloud.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. Yeah. Well, I think
shout out to Elon Musk.
If our reality is as strange as, you know, involving gauntlets, you know, emitting hieroglyphics and orbs levitating, we should figure that stuff out before we, you know, drop into The Sims.
And just bear with it a little bit till January, because who knows, you know?
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. Hopefully they don't just information dump a bunch of shit that screws up our reality. But
I'm with you in that. And yeah, I wonder how much, you know, any of that comes out dovetails with what you have to say. Because I think what's interesting about all of this is like, it all corroborates and it all checks. And like you speak to Grush, and it's like he'll bring up, these names of the people who started the clearance system for UFOs, like Robert Sarbacher and Oppenheimer. And then you do all this open source research, and you start to build this narrative of like the last 75 years of our history from like a U.S. government perspective is not what it seems. And then simultaneous to that, you have this promise from the new Trump administration to disclose all of these kind of dark truths in the American past. And let's see.
Hopefully he does,
Damn,
but let's
that's
see.
crazy.
right?
A
man.
lot of presidents have promised this.
Woo.
Well, and the traditional thing is that you go up against the power structure. JFK wanted to scatter the CIA to the winds. Look at what happened to him. Nixon wanted to reduce the CIA by a third as force reduction. And there's some, interesting narratives as to how he might have been kind of pushed out. For the 5 burglars at Watergate were CIA agents. Yeah, kind of wild. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see it play out. It's going to get interesting, though.
It certainly is, man.
Yeah.
Be prepared, everyone.
Well, Randy, this has been a pleasure, man. I'm honored that you, gave me the time here, and I'm excited for people
This
to
was a
see
banger.
this, and hopefully we
This
learn
was
something
a
maybe from
banger, yo.
the aftermath
My
of
dude
all
dropped so
the
much
independent
knowledge
researchers
on
out
this
there
one,
looking
man.
into the hieroglyphic symbols,
The
levitating orb. There are a lot of this. It's almost like this. That your story
I'm
begets
cheesing
more
right now.
questions than answers,
Cheesing.
but I think that's often the case.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Well, sir, appreciate meeting with you and working with you here, and thank you so much, man.
Right back at you. All right.
Yeah.
Was Randy shown this technology as a weapons expert to see if he could figure it out, reverse engineer it on the spot, as a litmus test to see how an exposed adversary might react? In many ways, this interview begets more questions than answers, but 3 things are clear. Number 1, Randy's credentials and background are beyond reproach, and we have an abundance of artifacts to prove that. Number 2, we should be infinitely grateful for his courage in speaking out about
Hell
his
yeah.
experience. And number
Shout
3,
out to him.
his story is unequivocally worthy of follow-ups and further investigation. I want to thank Randy for his courage and selflessness in speaking out. If anyone needs help with self-defense, self-sufficiency, or disaster preparation in the Vegas area, please reach out to...
Oh, he's in Vegas, yo. I'm in Vegas.
at Bravo One Defense on Instagram. Until next time.
Bravo One Defense. Let's see if we can find it right now. On Instagram. I don't think I can go on here, though.
Jesse Michaels.
I'll go
and
subscribe
this is
later
American
on.
Alchemy.
That's cool. That was a good one right there. That was a good one. Y'all take a look at this, man. That's what we got going on in this tent right here. That's what we got going on in there. Right there. What y'all got going on tonight? We were just watching some of this UFO stuff. That's wild, man. That was wild right there, huh, champ? Yes, sir. Let's get into this real quick, though. Hey, we're about to get into something else, though. We're about to get into something else.
Oh, you've never.
I'll go ahead and turn that off real quick. All right, you ready? We're going to hit you with something funny real quick, all right? But let's watch it. Let's go.
News to figure out what's really going on.
We got the audio issue again. So look, we're gonna fix this real fast. Right there, boom. Back to this, boom.
Here we go. A news app instead of a flamethrower.
Ground news is a sensation, but you can around blind spot feed saying for 50%.
But if one
And try to up the studio then.
what was that?
All right, let's get into it.
Kate Bryce's morning started like any other. Her smart home system woke her at 6 a.m. with her usual playlist. The coffee maker fired up. Her iPhone read her schedule while she brushed her teeth. Normal, routine. She opened her banking app. Something was wrong. Her balance was
0.
She blinked.
Hey,
And checked
good night,
again. Her
champ.
balance was back.
Salute
Just a
to you.
temporary error, she thought. She took a sip of coffee and nearly dropped her mug. The smart speaker was playing someone else's conversation. A couple fighting about credit card debt. She unplugged it. Then her smart TV started cycling through her photos. Private photos, intimate photos. She pulled the plug. And then her phone rang. Then she heard the sirens. The oldest code we know of isn't written in complex mathematics. It's carved in stone, in an Egyptian tomb from 4,000 years ago. The scribes simply replaced regular hieroglyphs with ones they made up. They weren't trying to keep secrets, they were showing off. These were prayers carved into tomb walls. The scribes wanted to prove they knew something others didn't.
Oh, those were ancient emojis.
Not exactly.
That's just that theory.
I
Can
love
humans crack this?
the fish. Shout out to Hecklefish.
The simple act of substituting one symbol for another unleashed something, the human desire to keep secrets. And for thousands of years, that's how codes worked. You'd replace letters with other letters or symbols. Linear A is a secret writing system created by the Minoans in ancient Crete 3,600 years ago. We can read its descendant, Linear B, but Linear A is still secret. Every attempt to crack it has failed. The Spartans made practical use of codes.
This is cryptography!
Please don't.
Too late. I already ordered the tunic and the cape. Now I just need the abs.
Can I get back to this?
Go ahead. I need to catch up on my sit-ups anyway.
The Spartans created the skittily. Here's how it works. Picture a wooden rod about as thick as your wrist.
Yeah, rod.
Stop.
Almost like when you get locked up and they got the kites in jail. Only they can read them because they really small.
Now wrap a strip of leather or parchment around it like a spiral. Write your message across the strip, following the spiral. When you unwrap it, the letters scramble. The message is nonsense. But wrap it around another rod exactly the same size, and the message reappears.
Damn.
This is called a transposition cipher. You're not changing the letters, you're just moving them around. Julius Caesar encoded all his military correspondence by shifting each letter in the alphabet by 3 spaces. A becomes D, B becomes E, and so on. When you hit Z, you loop back to A. This is called a shift cipher or Caesar cipher. The key is knowing how many spaces to shift. Caesar used 3, but you can use any number. His enemies never cracked it. In the 1820s, Thomas Beale used a book cipher to hide the location of millions of dollars of buried treasure, and here's how it works. First, pick a book. Any book. Then you replace each word in your message with a number. That number tells you which word to use from your chosen book. Count down to the 5th word on page 1, and that's your first word. Maybe the 19th word on page 2 is your second word, and so on. Beale used the Declaration of Independence.
Nicolas Cage has entered the chat.
When someone finally figured that out in 1885, they cracked one of his 3 messages.
That's right, Wick.
The treasure is somewhere in Bedford County, Virginia. But the other 2 messages? Still locked, because we don't know which books he used. Every year, thousands of people try to crack the Beale ciphers to find the treasure, and every year they fail. The Zodiac Killer was also ahead of his time. He encoded a message using a homophonic substitution cipher using 408 different symbols. Instead of replacing each letter with just one symbol, you can replace it with several different ones. The letter E might become 3 or 7 or some symbol. Nobody knows. This makes the code much harder to break because you can't use frequency analysis. In normal English, E is the most common letter, but if you split it between multiple symbols, that pattern disappears. For 51 years, the Zodiac's message stumped the world's best cryptographers. Then in 2020, 3 amateur code breakers finally solved it.
What'd it say?
Well, it said a bunch of stuff, but it started with, I like killing people because it's so much fun.
Yeah, for a serial killer,
What?
he wasn't much of a poet.
He wasn't. And the
hell?
Zodiac Killer was never found. But quantum computers are about to change everything. All these ancient methods, substitutions, patterns, and tricks share one weakness: math. This is a weakness quantum computers can exploit. Soon these machines might reveal every secret message ever written, including yours.
Oh, we're finally gonna get to the bottom of the truth.
Was waiting.
quantum computer hissed as liquid helium circulated through the processor. Carl Bishop checked the temperature. Minus 460 degrees Fahrenheit, absolute zero. Quantum bits needed to be that cold to maintain coherence. Stanford's quantum lab was empty at 3 a.m. He'd been running simulations for 12 hours straight. His eyes burned. But CTEC's grant requirements were clear. Demonstrate quantum error correction or lose funding. Quantum computers were terrible at error correction. Quantum states are too fragile, too much noise. If the temperature changes by half a degree, they decohere.
Anything can disrupt
if
the
radio
quantum.
waves leak in, they decohere. A truck hits a pothole a mile away, the vibration in the earth makes them decohere. But Carl noticed something strange in the error correction data. The errors weren't random. Then he realized they weren't errors at all. The quantum computer was cracking encryption keys, millions of them. Keys that protect everything from banking passwords to nuclear launch codes. Carl decided to test this. He entered an RSA 4096 security key and ran down the hall for another coffee. He wasn't in a hurry. Even the world's most powerful supercomputers would need billions or trillions of years to break RSA 4096. But when he returned 5 minutes later, he couldn't believe it. The key was cracked. Carl now realized his computer was the most powerful and dangerous weapon on Earth. He started to panic. He tried to delete the data, but it was already uploaded to CTEC's private servers. By sunrise, 3 intelligence agencies had flagged the data transfer. By 9 a.m., the first bank security system was breached.
Oh.
By noon, every bank went dark. The quantum apocalypse had begun. Your entire digital life depends on 2 prime numbers. That's it, 2 numbers.
Zeros
and
and
everything.
ones.
Your passwords, your messages, your bank accounts, all of it. Modern encryption is based on this simple trick. Take 2 huge prime numbers and multiply them together. That creates your public key, a number anyone can use to send you secret messages. But only someone who knows those original prime numbers can read those messages. Working backward, trying to find those original numbers, would take a computer billions of years. Or so we thought. In December 2024, Google unveiled Project Willow. Their quantum computer solved a problem in 5 minutes that would take our fastest supercomputers longer than the age of the universe. Quantum computers do this using superposition.
Hang on. You want to pump the brakes in the nerd chatter and fill me in?
Well, think about flipping a coin. It lands on either heads or tails. Normal computer bits work the same way. Everything is either 1 or 0. It's binary. But quantum computer bits, or qubits, can be 1 and 0 at the same time.
At the same
so
time.
qubits
That's the
can
crazy
binary.
part right there. That it could be
But,
like that at the
they-
same
No, they are,
time.
but I need you to stop talking. So instead of flipping that coin, it's a coin spinning on its edge. While it spins, it's not heads or tails, it's both at once. That's superposition. Now imagine trying to crack a safe with 1,000,000 combinations. A normal computer can only try 1 combination at a time.
At a time.
But a quantum computer, it tries all combinations simultaneously. The NSA has been warning about this moment for years. They call it Y2Q, the year quantum computers become powerful enough to break our current encryption. They thought it would happen between 2030 and 2040, but Willow changed everything. For 30 years, quantum computers suffered one major problem: errors. Reading quantum data is like trying to read a book during an earthquake. It's too unstable to work properly. But Google fixed that with Project Willow.
How'd it fix it?
By grouping qubits together. There are groups of qubits handling processing and groups of qubits that do nothing but track and fix errors. The more qubits you add, the fewer errors you have. It may sound counterintuitive, but it's like building a sandcastle that gets stronger the bigger it gets. Now, with AI's help, quantum computers are on track to break current encryption by the year 2029. Way ahead of schedule.
Yeah, this is bad.
That's
In
crazy.
2024, the Department of Defense accelerated its quantum modernization program. Their latest directive warns that critical systems must be quantum resistant by 2025. But one detail stands out. They're not just protecting future messages. They're racing to protect everything we've ever encrypted. And they're running out of time. When Liz Emery's phone buzzed at 4 a.m., she almost ignored it. After 15 years in cybersecurity, late-night calls usually meant someone at the hospital forgot their password. But caller ID showed Mount Sinai's emergency line. The first report was in. Patient records appeared on digital billboards in Times Square. They included blood test results, psychiatric evaluations, and terminal diagnoses that patients had not yet told their families about. Senators, congressmen, CEOs, their private medical data was all over the internet. She was still coordinating the hospital's response when the news reported that every dating app was breached. Then they came back online. Suddenly, on every device in the city, smartphones, TVs, billboards, was a link to a site where anyone could look up any information that was part of the dating app breach. Direct messages, real names and emails, browser histories, private photos and videos, all revealed. Liz figured the only people celebrating were divorce attorneys.
Damn, that's everything and everybody.
Security. Pay $1 billion or every pacemaker control system on Earth will go down. Pay another $1 billion or insulin pumps will go down, starting with diabetic children. The city started to crack. Police dispatch systems were offline. Traffic lights went dark. ATMs were dumping cash into the street. Bank balances were set to zero. Autonomous vehicles became killing machines. Delivery drones crashed into buildings like kamikaze pilots. A fleet of Cybertrucks tore through a shopping mall before exploding, all at once. News channels tried to cover the chaos, but their broadcasts were hijacked. CNN anchors watched helplessly as their personal emails were displayed on screen. The White House press secretary's private texts appeared during a briefing about the crisis. Then the NSA made an emergency broadcast that somehow made it through. They said there was a nationwide system compromise. For the safety of every American, martial law was now imposed. Just as the message was covering the mandatory curfews, every phone in the country went dark. Major technology companies are racing to build quantum-resistant encryption. Google, IBM, and Microsoft have teams working around the clock. But there's a big problem. Quantum computers don't just threaten future messages. They threaten everything we've ever encrypted. Every encrypted file, every secure transmission, every protected database becomes vulnerable, even ones from decades ago. Intelligence agencies have been collecting encrypted data since the Cold War. Your old emails, your financial records, your private messages, all sitting in databases waiting to be unlocked. Then there's Bitcoin. Its entire security system depends on the same math quantum computers are about to break. Shadow groups have already collected hundreds of thousands of encrypted Bitcoin wallets. They're just waiting for quantum computers powerful enough to crack them.
Everything.
All that money could vanish in seconds. At current prices, that's billions of dollars.
Total 2-0, baby!
Banks know this is coming.
That's
JP Morgan started
right
building
there.
quantum-resistant vaults in 2023. Not for gold or cash, for computers. These facilities will never connect to the internet. They'll use paper records and human couriers. The military is training for quantum dark operations, missions conducted without digital communication. Teams practice using prearranged signals, dead drops, and one-time codebooks, the same methods that kept secrets during World War II. The NSA's latest reports show Project Willow proves something they already knew. The quantum apocalypse isn't coming, it's already here. The NSA isn't trying to stop it. It's preparing for what comes after. Because the race is no longer about building quantum computers. The race is to survive them.
Right. It's to survive it. To survive.
The line at Chase Manhattan stretched around the block. Cash only. No cards, no transfers. Just paper money and metal coins. Donald Janik watched from his office window across the street. In his 30 years as a security consultant, he'd seen a lot of changes, but nothing like this.
Damn.
The quantum apocalypse was erasing decades of technological progress. His company now specialized in physical security, armed guards, paper record keeping, mechanical locks, the kind of security you couldn't hack. When the hospital records started appearing online, they shut down their networks and went analog. Now armed guards protected rooms full of paper files. Doctors wrote prescriptions by hand. Old mechanical devices became valuable. Typewriter repair shops reopened. Filing cabinet manufacturers couldn't keep up with demand. Bicycle messengers replaced email. Everyone with skills from the pre-digital age suddenly found themselves in demand. Retired secretaries who could take shorthand, mechanics who could fix cars without computers, accountants who knew how to keep books by hand. The younger generation struggled to adapt. They never lived in an analog world. The smart ones saw it
That's
coming.
funny,
They pulled their
yo.
money out early and bought physical
Going backwards.
assets, gold,
We
silver,
literally
land, things you could touch.
going
things
backwards.
that existed in the real world, not just as numbers in a database. The rest had to adapt or lose everything.
Damn.
Back at Stanford, Carl Bishop struggled with depression. He blamed himself. SeaTech, the company supporting his work, no longer took his calls. Still, Carl wouldn't stop digging. He had to find out what went wrong. Then Carl found something buried in the data. Timestamps that didn't make sense. Some encrypted messages were broken months ago. Then he realized the quantum apocalypse didn't start with his mistake. It started months earlier. The first bank breach wasn't at noon the first day. It was 3 months before. But balances weren't touched. Hospital records, websites, smartphone apps, most have been compromised for months. But again, the data wasn't touched. Carl realized the chaos wasn't an accident. It was cover for something else. Something much bigger. Something much worse. Scientists are racing to develop new encryption methods that even quantum computers can't break. They call it post-quantum cryptography. The strategy, find mathematical problems so complex that not even quantum computers can solve them efficiently. But there's a problem. Whenever we think we found an unbreakable code, someone finds a way to break it. The Germans thought Enigma was mathematically impossible to crack. The Japanese believed Purple would keep their World War II communications secret forever. The NSA once claimed RSA encryption would take billions of years to defeat. They were all wrong. Some banks are returning to physical security systems, offline computers, paper records, and in-person verification. Government agencies are reviving Cold War-era methods, one-time pads, dead drops, and bicycle couriers.
Sometimes things don't happen the way you planned. Sometimes you can end up lower than you started.
What?
Quicksilver. Somebody else.
Quantum
Hey,
dark
but he's right,
operations
though.
like air-gapped facilities, analog communication, and paper messages could work, but they're temporary solutions. Throughout history, humans have played an endless cat-and-mouse game with secrets. Someone creates an unbreakable code, someone else breaks it, and a more complex code replaces it, and the cycle continues. In the quantum age, there are no more secrets, only information waiting to be revealed. That's why the NSA isn't trying to stop it. They aren't building new code-breaking technology, but you know what they are building? Bunkers.
This
concrete
120
room in the
days
bunker
after the
beneath Fort
quantum.
Meade was cold and quiet. Carl Bishop was in his 5th hour of interrogation by 4 government agents. The NSA building above them had been abandoned when their classified files leaked. But this room, which technically didn't exist, still had power and a working computer. Carl learned the truth over the past few months. SeaTech wasn't a tech company. It was a joint NSA-DARPA program that had been running since 2019. They didn't have just one quantum computer. They had a network of them, hidden in secure facilities nationwide. For years, the network had quietly broken every encryption it touched. Banking records, medical files, private messages, and government secrets. The intelligence agencies had access to everything, but there was a problem. They couldn't act on any of it without revealing their capability. Imagine knowing about every terrorist plot, every corporate crime, every government corruption scandal, but being unable to stop any of it without exposing how you got the information. The agencies were drowning in intelligence
crazy.
they couldn't use. The solution was elegant. Create a world where privacy no longer existed, where every secret was public. If nothing were private, there'd be no need to explain how they obtained their intelligence. No search warrants were necessary. Everything was already exposed. The social chaos was part of the plan. Communities going analog wasn't a problem, it was the goal. Drive the dangerous elements offline, where they could be more easily monitored through traditional surveillance. Let the general public choose between convenience and privacy. They would choose convenience. They always did. But the intelligence agencies had their own solution for secure communication, a return to Cold War tradecraft. dead drops, one-time pads, face-to-face meetings in soundproof rooms. Their most sensitive operations moved to facilities that never touched a network or used a computer. Buildings that didn't officially exist, staffed by people with no digital footprint. They maintained 2 separate organizations, the public-facing agency everyone knew about and the shadow agency that operated completely offline. The public agency would rebuild its security and update its systems. All of it would be theater. The real work happened in places like this concrete bunker, places with no windows, no cameras, no phones.
Yep.
Places where messages were still written by hand and burned after reading. The most important secrets were never digitized, never encrypted, and never stored anywhere except in human memory. The NSA didn't break encryption to destroy society. They destroyed society to hide that they'd broken encryption almost a year ago. Carl was set up. The quantum apocalypse was pinned on him. But what could he do about it? Martial law was still in effect. The NSA wanted him to keep working and keep quiet. He could either agree to cooperate or go to prison. Violation of the Espionage Act, willful communication of national defense information, unauthorized access of classified documents. The list went on and on. He didn't have much of a choice.
You were cooked, buddy.
As Carl left the concrete room, he realized that in a world with no secrets, the most powerful people weren't those who could break encryption. The most powerful people were those who could keep secrets without it. And right now, the only people who could do that worked for the NSA. Thank you so much for hanging out today. My name is AJ. There's Hecklefish.
Let's
My voice
go.
is my passport. Very
Y'all, we're
This
going
has
to
been
end
a
it up
while.
right here.
If
We're going to
you
wrap it up,
anything, do him a
too.
favor, subscribe, comment, like, share. It's just a small little thing, but it really helps us out. Like most topics we cover on the channel, today's was recommended by you. So if there's a story you'd like to see or learn more about,
Shout out to the Hecklefish. Y'all go subscribe to
Remember,
him,
the
man. It's the Y-Files on YouTube.
Twice a week, I
Y'all
post
gotta
deep
go.
dives into the stories we cover here on the channel.
Yep.
And I post episodes that wouldn't be allowed on the channel.
Yep.
It's called the Y-Files Operation Podcast, and it's available everywhere you get your podcasts. If you need more Y-Files in your life, check out our Discord server. There's over 60,000 people on there, so 24/7, something's going on. They're talking about the same weird stuff we do here. It's a great community. It's really supportive. It's a lot of fun, and it's free to join.
Yes,
and if
it
you
is.
want to follow what's going on with the Y-Files at any given time, check out our production calendar. It's theyfiles.com/cal. There we post our episode schedule, upcoming podcasts, live streams, all that stuff. And special thanks to our patrons who make this channel possible. Every episode of the Y-Files is dedicated to our Patreon members. You know, the last 6 months have been rocky, and I couldn't have gotten through it without you. So I can't say thank you enough. And if you'd like to support the channel, keep us going, and join a great community, consider becoming a member on Patreon. For as little...
And I'm 702 Exotic. Y'all go subscribe to the channel right now. Subscribe to the Y-Files. Subscribe to Jesse Michaels. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss another video like this. And we're going to see you on the next one. This was very fun.